Hello and a very warm welcome to Front Page only on the AIM Network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. Truly a pleasure to have you all with us. But before we get on with the show and the headlines, here is something which is very important, and I believe you shall enjoy this little piece of information, which is the fact that Cypher, India's biggest AI summit and expo, is back. Yes, in its 10th edition, and it's bigger than ever. And it will be taking place in October of this year at KTPO, Bengaluru. So if you're very serious about your AI and tech, and I know you are, then I'm guessing that you will be at Cypher 2026. And now, of course, here are the headlines. Microsoft rolled out Claude code to thousands of engineers, watched productivity soar, and then cancelled most licenses anyway. Not because the tool failed, but because token-based billing made it too expensive to scale across the entire organization. Apple's manufacturing pivot accelerates as India's global AirPods production share quadruples to 4% in just 1 year, eating into China and Vietnam's dominance via a massive Foxconn expansion. Zendesk product president Shashi Upadhyay introduces the Autonomous Service Workforce Framework at Relate 2026, driving an AI-native SaaS transformation heavily backed by engineering development pools across India. As AI aggressively automates production pipelines, JFrog's Sunny Rao wants that unaudited autonomous code and fragile supply chains risk triggering a global tech disruption far worse than the CrowdStrike crash. CloudKeeper unveils LensGPT, an agentic conversational AI interface designed to replace static FinOps dashboards and assist enterprise clients in managing volatile AI-driven cloud infrastructure costs. Microsoft has done something nobody expected. It gave thousands of engineers access to the hottest AI coding tool on the planet, watch them love it and use it every day, and then cancelled most of the licenses. And this decision was not motivated because they felt the tool was bad or the developers hated it. Instead, it was because AI maybe is becoming too expensive to scale. And if Microsoft's pulling back, maybe the rest of the industry should probably pay attention. Hello and welcome to Front Page. Well, before we get on, please make sure to like, share and subscribe so basically you don't miss anything and you always stay ahead of the curve. Now that you've been kind enough to have done that, let's begin. Today, our story centers around a decision that could become one of the most important beacons in the AI economy this year. So according to multiple reports, Microsoft is cancelling most of its internal Claude code licenses and pushing developers toward GitHub Copilot CLI instead. The teams impacted include Windows, Microsoft 365, Outlook, Teams, and Surface engineers. And this comes just 6 months after Microsoft rolled out Claude code to thousands of employees. The irony? Well, by most accounts, developers loved it, which raises a bigger question. If AI coding tools are supposed to make engineers more productive, why are some of the biggest companies in the world suddenly becoming obsessed with controlling AI costs? Well, the easier story is Microsoft versus Anthropic, but the real story is economics. So for a couple of years, the AI industry sold a rather basic narrative. AI will replace workers, it will reduce costs, and will improve margins. The investors lapped it up. So did the markets and boards. Then the bills arrived, and suddenly the conversation changed completely. Back in December of 2025, Microsoft opened Claude Code access to thousands of developers. The goal was, let us see how AI agents perform in real software engineering workflows. So according to reports, adoption went through the roof. The engineers preferred it. Teams used it heavily. Consequently, the productivity improved. But the popularity of this created another problem, token consumption. And token consumption translates to compute costs, a huge compute cost. By June of 2026, Microsoft decided enough was enough. Employees are now being pushed toward GitHub Copilot CLI instead. Officially, Microsoft says this is more to do with standardizing around its own tooling, which is true. But there is another aspect. The company is making the transition just before the 30th of June, the end of Microsoft's fiscal year. Honestly, seems like a very convenient moment to cut operating expenses, no? Anyway, here is actually the honest thought. Microsoft owns GitHub, it owns Copilot and Azure. Also, Microsoft owns roughly 27% of OpenAI. So every engineer who uses Copilot strengthens Microsoft's ecosystem. Every prompt, workflow, interaction, training signal, and every dollar spent, which actually flows back into assets Microsoft already controls. Claude Code may have been the better tool for many engineers, but Copilot is Microsoft's tool. And sometimes platform strategy beats developer preference. And this is where things get intriguing. Microsoft isn't alone. Uber recently revealed that heavy AI users were consuming between $500 and $2,000 per month in AI costs. So according to reports, Uber burned through its planned AI budget months ahead of schedule. Then came NVIDIA, and this might be actually the most surprising quote of all. Brian Catanzaro, who is the vice president of applied deep learning at NVIDIA, said this, and I quote, "For my team, the cost of compute is far beyond the costs of the employees," end quote. A senior executive at the company selling AI chips is openly saying compute costs exceed labor costs, which should definitely make everyone stop and think. The promise was simple: replace expensive humans with cheaper AI, but in some situations, the opposite is happening. Not because AI isn't useful, because AI at scale is hungry for GPUs, electricity, tokens, inference, context windows, and is of course very hungry for agents talking to other agents. But the more capable AI becomes, the more infrastructure it consumes, which is creating a paradox. AI is making individual tasks cheaper while making total system costs a lot more expensive. Then suddenly, Google's recent anti-gravity update makes a lot more sense. Just a few days ago, Google introduced Gemini 3.5 Flash Low, a model designed to reduce token consumption by roughly 45%. And this was done because developers asked for lower costs, not for lesser intelligence. Google was alive to what was happening, hence the introduction. It makes one, of course, realize, right, that the future AI race is about efficiency, revealing the core thought, which is who can deliver the most useful output for the lowest number of tokens. Because eventually, every company slams into this roadblock, which is the AI works, and then the bill arrives. And this may be actually the most important takeaway. Microsoft gets to experiment. It gets second chances, allowing it to absorb mistakes, which most startups cannot. A startup that accidentally spends, let's say, $20,000 a month on tokens learns a very painful lesson, for sure. Whereas a startup that spends $200,000 a month on tokens may not survive long enough to learn anything. Which is why the next generation of AI-native companies will need three things: clear objectives, cost controls, and disciplined review loops. Because AI has generated a lot of code. It's actually not the same thing as the company has created value. This, of course, is drawing a clear distinction. One is just an activity, while the other is progress. And now for the twist. So even as Microsoft cuts Claude Code licenses, it's simultaneously discussing supplying AI chips to Anthropic, the same Anthropic whose software it is reducing internally. Why? Well, because infrastructure may ultimately be more valuable than applications. Microsoft doesn't necessarily need every employee using Claude. It needs every AI company buying Azure, buying chips, compute, and cloud capacity, which is actually, and you've guessed it, where the real money is being minted. And here, of course, is the front page take. So for the last 2 years, the AI industry focused on intelligence. 2026 may become the year the industry starts focusing on economics. Because the question no longer is, can AI do the work? The answer is, well, progressively, yes. But the real question is, can AI do the work profitably? Microsoft's Claude Code decision suggests the answer isn't always as obvious as people thought. Well, what are your thoughts? If you please want to know, let us know in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the IIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Apple's AirPods were never supposed to be made in India, not at scale and this fast, and definitely not at the expense of China and Vietnam. But in just 1 year, India's share of global AirPods assembly has jumped from 1% to 4%. You know what? Which may sound small until you realize what it actually means. Apple's supply chain is definitely moving, and every percentage point Apple shifts is worth billions of dollars, thousands of jobs, and a stronger position in the global manufacturing race. So according to the latest estimates from Smart Analytics Global, India's share of Apple's global AirPods assembly has increased from 1% to CY 2025 to 4% in Q1 2026. At the same time, Vietnam's share has slipped from 64% to 62%, while China's has declined from 35% to 34%. So the heart of this story is speed. India started assembling AirPods only in April of 2025. 1 year later, it has already quadrupled its share. That's unusually fast for Apple, and we say that because Apple spends a very long time qualifying suppliers, validating processes, building logistics networks, and training manufacturing workforces. So every production line that we see, which is an Apple production line, is actually a testament to years of planning. So when India goes from 1% to 4% in just 1 year, Apple is actually sending a very clear signal, which is the experiment is working. The biggest reason behind this jump is Foxconn. Last year alone, Foxconn doubled AirPods production capacity at its Hyderabad facility. Capacity increased to 200,000 units per month. The company backed that expansion with roughly 4,800 crore rupees in investment. Capacity which is now, of course, translating into real output, and more importantly, into trust from Apple. The obvious answer is China +1. Well, that's been the discussion, doing the rounds. But that's only part of the story. India offers three things Apple progressively needs: a large, skilled workforce, government incentives, and a domestic market that continues to grow. For some time now, Apple has treated India primarily as a consumer market. Today, it's becoming both a manufacturing base and a strategic supply chain partner, which is a very different relationship. And what's interesting is that Vietnam remains dominant. It still produces 62% of the world's AirPods, which I guess we acknowledge is an enormous lead. But Vietnam's rise also offers a blueprint for India, which is this: just 2 years ago, Vietnam's share stood at 51%, which jumped to 64%. Now India is beginning its own climb. The lesson that we can take from this: Apple doesn't move everything at once. It diversifies gradually, and then suddenly China has declined from 35% to 34%. May not sound dramatic, but viewed over several years, the trend becomes to emerge and clear. China once dominated almost every major Apple product category. Today, production is spreading. India is gaining with iPhones and AirPods. And of course, India is also becoming a hedge against geopolitical uncertainty. No longer considered as a replacement for China, but a complement to it. And here, of course, is the front page take. This is also another example of something we've been tracking closely on front page, which is that Apple's India strategy is accelerating. Earlier, we saw Tata Electronics take over major Apple manufacturing assets. We've seen Foxconn expand aggressively. We've seen Apple's supplier ecosystem deepen. Also, Tim Cook repeatedly has called India one of Apple's most important growth markets. AirPods may be a small product category compared to iPhones, but the acceleration is quite evident. Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Now, while everyone is busy debating whether AI will replace software engineers, one company has positioned nearly 2,000 engineers behind a very different idea, and it's called the autonomous service workforce. And behind many of the systems powering it are engineering teams spread across the world, including India. Well, here at Zendesk Relate 2026 in Denver, Colorado, the company unveiled one of its biggest AI bets yet, including Agent Builder, Admin Copilot, Employee Service Agents, MCP-powered integrations, and a future where AI agents have gone beyond answering questions into a territory where they actually do the work. Helping shape that future is an Indian origin product leader whose career spans Google, startup exits, IPOs, and now one of the largest AI transformations happening in enterprise software. But before we actually dive deeper into the story, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Now that, well, you have done that, and we want to now understand what lies ahead. Because today, we are bringing you an exclusive conversation from the sidelines of Zendesk Relate 2026, where we sat down from AIM with Shashi Upadhyay, President of Product Engineering and AI at Zendesk, to understand what happens when a SaaS company decides to rebuild itself around AI. And perhaps more importantly, what role India is playing in that very transformation. But you know what? Before we actually show you the exclusive conversation, a little bit about Shashi. So before joining Zendesk, Shashi's career touched some of the most influential technology companies of the last 2 decades. He helped lead major advertising products at Google, including platforms that power billions of dollars in digital commerce. He also founded Lattice Engines, a predictive analytics startup which was later occupied by Dun & Bradstreet. Post the acquisition, he played a key role in product strategy during Dun & Bradstreet's journey back to the public markets. And finally, as on date, he leads product, engineering, and AI at Zendesk. And the mission at Zendesk is to transform customer and employee service into an AI-native system. Now, of course, to understand where Zendesk is headed next, how Agent Builder works, why outcome-based pricing matters, and how India's engineering teams are helping shape the future of customer and employee service, here is that promised exclusive conversation with Shashi Upadhyay, President of Product Engineering and AI at Zendesk, recorded on the sidelines of Zendesk Relate 2026 in Denver, Colorado. Please enjoy.
Hi, Shashi. How are you doing?
Very good. How are you?
Very good. So, how is the fourth edition of Relate compared to last year? What is the changes you're seeing in the last 1 year?
Well, this has been the year of AI. Last year was also the year of AI.
Wow.
But this is, I guess, last year was the low point. So what I mean by that is like AI has accelerated even further.
Got it.
And everything today and for the rest of the week is about how AI is transforming service.
Understood.
And how every company that was a service SaaS company will now have to become an AI company like us.
Wow.
So that's what everything is about. Yeah.
Got it. Out of all the things that was announced today, which is like, closer to your heart and you worked very closely with that product, and is there an inside story behind I'll go to the architectural challenges in terms of how it has changed, but out of everything that was announced, which is your favorite and why do you think it is going to be revolutionary in the coming months?
I'll give 2 answers.
Wow.
Okay, I'll give 2 answers.
Yeah.
Because it's like trying to pick between your kids. You can't like pick one, right?
Yeah.
Look, I think Agent Builder is a really big deal, and the reason it's a really big deal is because the whole software industry, as it started to move into AI, has become too much about like more and more services and forward deployed engineering and just, I call it complexification, right? It's like, oh, you can't do anything yourself. Let me send you this army of people who are going to come set things up for you. We have taken the opposite direction.
Correct.
We have said, look, our customers know their business really well, and they should be able to encapsulate that knowledge into AI agents. So that's what Agent Builder is. You can go build any business process you have. You can go build an agent for that, and then we provide the connectivity, the scaffolding, all of that for these agents to operate properly, talk to other agents, work, etc. So I think it's very high impact. I think it's going to just blow up the use of these agents. So that's number one. The second one, look, I think I love boring problems that have a lot of impact. So administration is like a boring problem. Nobody likes to, it's like no one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to build the admin screen today, right? Okay. But these people are really important, the administrators of support, because they are actually orchestrating the whole system. So we kind of reimagine what does an admin look like in the AI era. and it should be very intelligent. It should know everything that's going on, and it should always be proactive and coming back to you and saying, hey, if you did this, your service operation will improve. If you add this knowledge source, the service operation will improve. There are these issues that are coming up over and over again. Maybe you need to send it as a feedback to the product team to go build it. So it auto creates a ticket for you in Jira and then follows it up. So that sort of closed loop behavior starts with the admin copilot. So those are two things: agent builder, admin copilot.
Admin copilot.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting stuff. I'm looking forward to see how the adoption happens within the enterprise. Any early insight that we could give in terms of who has access to it, how they are using it? Any numbers?
Yeah, so we roll things out in 3 phases. Okay. We call it closed EAP, open EAP. So that's the early access program. And then this GA. Usually it's 2 months between each, right? So once we do, the first thing we do is a closed EAP, then we run with customers for 2 months. Then we do an open EAP, and then we run with customers for a few months, and then we go GA. Sometimes it can be longer, like especially if the first version needs more revisions, etc. So closed EAP is typically about 10 to 50 customers. Open EAP is 500 to 1,000 customers. So it's actually really open. And then GA means anybody can have it. With both Agent Builder, with Agent Builder, we are in closed EAP. With Agent Copilot, we are in Admin Copilot. We are in Open EAP. Amazing. So yeah, I mean, we are working with dozens of customers who are trying every day, and they give us sometimes positive, sometimes harsh feedback. And that is the whole part of that pre-release process.
Understood.
To get it to a place where these customers then tell us saying, okay, yes, this is good enough to see the light of the day. Yeah.
Amazing.
And then it goes out.
So any early glimpse into, how the revenue sharing model works for, in collaboration with these, closely working with the partners and deploying it at scale and, impact wise. So any early signs in terms of revenue sharing model with this collaboration that you're expecting?
With our partners?
Yes.
So look, we have a wide range of partners, of course, and there are. So to reflect that, we basically support multiple models. So there's a model in which the customer pays us, historically has paid us for the software, pays the partner for implementation, the run team, all of that stuff. We also have with AI coming in, a newer model coming up where an MSP, for example, can just say, "Hey, I will just use your software to run the entire system for the customer." So typically, like the customer is outsourcing to someone, and that organization will provide the people and the software, but they're buying the software, directly from us. And there are also pass-through models out there. So we support all 3. But in general, we are moving, like the big thrust of our company is to move towards outcome-based pricing, right? Which is when if you're using our AI and if it solves a problem, you pay us. If it's not able to solve a problem, then you don't pay us. And then it becomes how gets split up between different parts of the channel and so on. Yeah.
Very interesting times, like with the, so adding to that, you had mentioned earlier, like, it literally took like 2,000 people to build something that is what we are seeing today.
Correct.
So that is almost 1:3 ratio of the companies, like 6,000 is the total employee, right? So that is a pretty strong engineering team that you have.
Very strong. Very strong.
Pretty strong.
Yeah.
So I just want to understand, like, from the architecture breakthrough standoff, like how do you differentiate the Zendesk engineering team versus rest? I mean, it's a very different step that you've taken in terms of outcome-based building as well, plus not going the SaaS route. You're going like completely, 100% on Agentic AI, and believe 100%. This is I think 2 billion revenue is what Tom mentioned in the next 2029. So
for AI.
For AI revenue ARR. So with so much happening, so how is the engineering team, working around these kind of things? What was the architectural challenges that you had to go from, breaking the complete SaaS like mindset to complete agentic system? I'm sure it's not easy. So can you give us our viewers some insider thing in terms of how you rebuild the entire team of 2,000 engineers, reshaping their mindset as well from the traditional SaaS mindset to Another question is follow-up to that is, can these engineers go back to the SaaS days?
Yeah, no, there's no going back.
Okay.
I think I can answer that first.
Okay.
I think there are you had a number of points in there,
Yes,
so let me kind of dismantle, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So first of all, you have to build AI products, okay?
Understood.
And then you have to build the AI products using AI. And then when you build the product, you have to charge for it in this outcome-based mode. So there are 3 different challenges.
Wow.
And they're all quite different. So let's start with building the AI product. Building an AI product has some similarities with building a SaaS product and some dissimilarities.
Mm-hmm.
Similarities are, there's still a code, there's still a front end, there's still some, thing you talk to, there's still some database in the back that has to collect all this. That's very much SaaS-like. The dissimilarities are, there is an LLM or some AI model in between, which is non-deterministic, right? So we have trained generations of software people to write deterministic software.
Correct.
Now we're saying, hey, there's this thing which, behaves in different ways depending on the time of the day. So you have to get it to learn to behave properly.
Correct.
So to do that, you have to have guardrails and tests. So that's a craft in itself, right? And it's a still developing craft. We have done that partly by training our own people and partly by acquiring companies, right? We brought in people who are already doing this for several years, and that has been a very good formula for us, mixing the two. Your second question, which is developing using AI.
Correct.
That is the thing that I think you can never go back to the old world, because like the new world is actually that's coming up is you figure out what it is you want to build, you break it down into pieces, and then you use AI to generate the code, you inspect the code, or use another AI to inspect the code, and you sort of operate at a slightly higher level. It doesn't mean that, the sort of low-level boilerplating, all that stuff is like completely going to go away. Some people still going to do that, but it's not a productive way. It's the same as like if you have a car, why would you want to ride a bike? Maybe you want to ride a bike for entertainment and health, but that's not not if you want to go as fast as possible, right? So that's the second part. The third part, which is a very insightful question from you, that is actually the hardest thing. So the whole SaaS system is built around count seats, count utilization, MAU, DAU, all those metrics were built around it. And now we're saying, no, we're going to have this thing called resolution. But a resolution can be debated. I could say, hey, it's a resolution. You could say it's not. So how do you build a system that is right, 5 nines, like gets it right 99.995% of the time? The way you do it, is an open secret, the way we did it. The way we did it was we came up with a set of reasonable rules, which we worked with customers on initially. But then we added on top of that a judge LLM. So there's an LLM who reads every single interaction, who has been trained. So we have given it enough examples. It knows, okay, this is good, this is bad. And that actually tells you, hey, this is the real. And that thing works amazingly well. So this is using one LLM to actually figure out the work of the other. So it's those 3 things. The mix of like our headcount has been pretty constant at 2,000 for the last several years. But the mix of people who work on AI is almost half that now versus maybe like 10% 2 years ago. So we're rapidly moving in the other direction.
So if you could give our users these 2,000 engineers, how powerful are they compared to traditional way of SaaS? Like how many people you needed?
Well, most of those people are still the same.
Oh yeah.
Right? We have acquired a number of companies, etc. So we've had probably maybe like, I would say over half the people in the company are still the same people who were here 2 years ago. They're working with a different set of tools, right? Zendesk, by the way, has always had very good engineering, like really solid engineers. And it's also my belief that people who are doing the old SaaS engineering, whatever you're going to call it, old engineering, are actually the best suited to benefit from the new tools. But they have to have the right attitude. Okay, like they have to learn the new tools. But the hard part is not like telling Claude, hey, go build me this thing, right? Anybody can do that.
Understood.
The hard part is you take a problem, you decompose it into parts. Then for each part, you get the code generated. You have some intuition for, is that going to work? Is it going to scale? Where will the bottlenecks be? That stuff, you can't like a novice can't know that stuff. You only know that from experience. So I actually like having experienced engineers on the team. We need a mix, of course.
Amazing.
But we're not trying to replace everyone with like a whole new crew. We're not trying to do that at all.
Got it. So let me take you back to India. So Pune hub, right? So it has more than 300 engineers.
Correct.
So are there any breakthroughs that has come out from the India hub to present day launches that are released? What contributions they have done? And also how are these engineers different from the ones in the Silicon Valley or rest of the world that you have seen?
I'll answer the last part first.
Yes.
There's no difference.
Okay.
I'm very, very happy with the quality of engineers we have in Pune.
Amazing.
And there's no difference in the work they do. They work on our most important products. It's not a back office for us. It's not a maintenance. It's none of those things. They work on the same set of things that everybody else does. They had a contribution in several of the products that were released.
Wow.
We have teams that are working on what's Action Builder, which actually touches really like all of these other systems. We have teams that are working on employee service. So we are introducing an employee service AI agent. We have teams that are working on evals. So evaluation is basically like, when you build AI models, then you have to evaluate them for how well they're doing. So AI agents, for example, right? So like we have teams that are coming up, and that's like one of the growth areas for us there. Our whole, like a big part of our, like if you go to the Zendesk website and try to sign up, you can actually buy AI directly from our website, which very few companies can do. That whole flow is built by the Pune team.
Wow. Okay.
So, I can go on and on, but they're working on like really cutting edge stuff.
Pretty amazing. So yeah, I just want to know, you're also from India. You've studied in IIT Kanpur and then you went to Cornell. So it's a typical story of an Indian engineer who has own multiple hats, right from the entrepreneur side. You also were involved in Google's ad, platform and, scaling it. And also, exited from your startup as well. It's a pretty interesting journey, and now you're leading the AI engineering team here at Zendesk and building cutting edge product out there. If somebody is watching from India right now, so I just want to understand, with the same journey that you had, it's crazy journey that you had. If you were in the present era, what would you tell them? Not when you started, but today, if it for the agentic era generation, AI agents generation, what should they keep in mind?
I would just say be obsessed. I think, look, I've done a lot of different jobs, but I've loved every one of them.
Wow. Okay.
And when I was doing it, this is the only thing I wanted to do. Nothing else.
Got it.
And, at some point I moved on and did something else. But whatever it is you're doing, like if you're a designer, be the best designer. Like really strive for excellence. Like develop taste. Try to understand other people's work. Why is that really good, right? Like in general, like broad advice would be like go really deep into AI. Like really understand what it does well, what it doesn't do well. It's the most fun you can have. Right now. It's the best toy in the world. Okay. So play with the toy. Don't fight the toy, But you also have to follow your instincts, right? I was at IIT, but I had decided I really wanted to study physics. So I changed my branch and I studied physics for almost 10 years.
Correct.
And then I decided I didn't want to be a professor. I didn't like the career path. So a friend introduced me to a management consulting firm, and it turned out I really liked that job. So I stayed there for 7 years. And then I was like, well, I can just stay here all my life, but I really want to do something different and something more technical. But if you do management consulting for 7 years, it's hard to get a technical job. So I had to start a company so I could do something technical. So it's just, but whatever you do, just do it with all your heart. That's my advice. And do AI. Learn AI.
And final, what is your leadership mantra? It's pretty intense in terms of building the team and scaling, and also any future roadmap you could give glimpse to our viewers in terms of what we can expect from Zendesk in the coming say 18 months once all of these things will roll out. Are you building more projects? Some glimpse if somebody is watching, some engineers, and if you guys are hiring, what are the mindset you're looking for?
I'll start with again.
There's a lot of questions.
So what we look for are really like it's sort of very straightforward, right? We look for like great problem solvers who are like on top of their tools, all that stuff, and then we look for people who are easy to work with. Zendesk has like a really amazing culture. I think anyone will tell you this, right? We don't want like people who are amazing problem solvers but are just difficult to be around. We also don't want people who are just like really great fun to be around but can't do any work.
Wow.
Okay, we need both. Okay. So that's like a non-negotiable.
Got it.
I think on your sort of questions of what's coming out next, I mean the AI thing has barely started, right?
Okay.
Barely started. So like I'll give you one example of something we are working on, right? So I talked to my team about the dream mode. So humans dream, right?
Correct.
But dreaming is actually kind of problem solving, or like it's learning, right? Your brain is like trying to process what happened the last few days. I mean, ignore the supernatural stuff, but I'm just talking about this, right? Well, an AI agent that has had all these conversations, you can imagine a dream mode for that. It's sort of, I had all these conversations. Like, how could I have done it better? So it's actually like, replaying scenarios, etc., and then coming back to solution.
Got it.
So there are like so many, like, and by the way, that would make it a lot better. Right?
Correct. Like,
so I think there's just so many ways to be inspired and do things like that. We want to open up the platform more so people can build things themselves. We want to open it up so it's actually more agent friendly, right? So I actually think in a few years, most of the support conversations will happen between agents. Your agent will talk to
absolutely,
there'll be no human interview. So like preparing for that.
Wow.
And then making sure security, observability, all those things stay at the center of it.
Got it.
It's an infinite frontier.
Absolutely.
A lot of things to go.
I mean, we can go on and on.
Yes.
But, thank you, Shavi. That was amazing. Yeah. Thank
and
you
really good questions. So
thank
you.
Thank
you are like on top of your game, man.
In July of 2024, a single faulty software update from CrowdStrike took down 8.5 million window devices globally. Airlines were grounded, hospitals went offline, emergency services got disrupted. One update, one supplier, global consequences. That happened before AI started writing significant portions of production code. The software supply chain was already complex. It is now moving faster with more automated components and fewer human eyes on what is actually shipping. Sunny Rao is SVP APAC at JFrog, and he's joining me today on Front Page, and he will of course shed light, as his name suggests, bright and nice, on what this conversation actually means for all of us moving forward. Welcome to Front Page, Sunny. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you, Sudhi, for having me here. Great introduction. I hope to shed light on the challenges that the enterprise faces more than myself.
It's so wonderful to have you with us on the show. Thank you so much for making time. I'd like to actually start with that, Sunny. I want to start with the CrowdStrike bit, 2024, one update, as I mentioned. So what did it actually change in how enterprises think about supply chain risk? And do you feel the industry has genuinely learned from it?
I think that incident that you referenced was one of many. There have been significant
I'm so sorry,
incidents.
Sunny. Could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you properly. Thank you.
Sure.
Much better.
That first incident that you referenced was one of many.
Sure.
There have been significant other incidents since. And in fact, even going into last month, when you had between two incidents, over 200 million downloads that were affected because of one faulty update. So the industry is waking up to it. I would say that we are still far behind in terms of catching up. I'll give you one example,
Please.
one metric. We did a report which we have just released called the Software Supply Chain State of the Union.
Mm-hmm.
And what it identified is that in India, 65% of the enterprises have no protection against malicious package risk.
Wow.
That's a telling number.
Wow.
And it's the largest in the world. So it's a very dubious distinction.
Right. But that actually brings me to this point then, Sunny, which is that developers are constantly shipping code. They do not write line by line, to be honest. So when AI generates significant portions of production code, Sunny, where are the blind spots nobody is talking about? I mean, I'm of course referencing now to that report and that very telling number that you just mentioned.
Yeah. So the attack surface has actually shifted beyond code. And I think that is another fallacy that the industry needs to overcome. We're now looking at new attack vectors. It has moved from packages or code. It's gone into the models. It's going into the tools, which are the IDE extensions where people write the code. So they put extensions into it. So it's moved there. It's moved into MCP registries and now including going into skills marketplaces. So the attack surfaces are shifting quite dramatically. And enterprises are using outdated capabilities to try and scan. So scanning is just very outdated at the moment.
Why is that though? I mean, since you mentioned that it's going across the board now, why is it that the companies are not being cognizant of this and seeing it? Because I'm pretty sure, Sunny, I mean, in their own workflows, these things would probably be popping up. And is it because they're not aware? Is it because the tools to scan are not proper? I mean, I'd love for you to please share.
Yeah, look, the average enterprise, including the ones that we work with in India, have an average of about 7 security tools in the enterprise. Each one is reporting in a different way. So there is no single source of truth for an enterprise to figure out what they need to be doing. So now let's take the example. You have 20% increase in vulnerabilities that are being reported.
Right.
When you look at some of them, nearly 96% are not even exploitable inside the enterprise. And that's our research that indicates that. Yet, companies spend enormous amount of time trying to remediate those when they're not exploitable. So the inability to contextualize it, the inability to get a single source of truth, the inability to have a single system of record that's governing the entire supply chain, and on top of it, a fast-moving ecosystem where agentic AI is starting to take over code generation is creating a real conundrum here for the enterprise. And that's the challenge they're trying to overcome.
Fair enough. Which brings me to this point then. Multiple clouds, as you mentioned, open source components are there, third-party dependencies are there, AI-generated code, as you just mentioned, are all actually happening simultaneously. All of them are moving simultaneously. So according to you then, Sunny, what needs to change in how enterprises approach security when probably the pipeline is this distributed and honestly this fast in terms of the pace at which it's going?
It's multi-cloud, it's multi-model now, and there are more programming languages that an enterprise is using. So an average enterprise uses between 4 to 7, some of them more than 10 programming languages.
Sure.
What we have seen in our report is that there has been some shift. You are starting to see more programming languages that are scripted because of the agentic AI utilization. You also have multiple models, and therefore there is that complexity. What this means for an organization is that they need to put the right framework in place. They need to look at this as a supply chain governance issue, not simply a set of security tools that they need to stitch together, because that's not going to give them a single source of truth. And this is kind of what we are trying to educate the market, and we've been doing this quite well around the world, which is you need to have a supply chain governance platform that allows you to make sure that you don't bring in anything vulnerable in the first place, because attacks are happening even before you write a line of code. So how do you make sure that you're not bringing anything in? How do you make sure that security is scalable at machine speed? How do you ensure that the policies that you have as an enterprise can be implemented, and that there is a compliance engine that is checking on these policy implementation and enforcing it? How do you make sure compliance is happening? And therefore, how do you ensure that there is a complete layer of governance? So really, an enterprise needs to set up a new control plane that is actually managing the end-to-end supply chain, and that has to be built on a single system of a single source of truth.
I mean, the way you described it, Sunny, to be honest, it doesn't seem to be a very simple thing for an enterprise to do. Correct me if I'm wrong. One, two, what was the motivation behind the report? I mean, was it like a singular incident that took place, or was it generally the voice of the enterprises that coaxed you to go ahead and generate this report for everyone to kind of wake up and smell the coffee?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, as an organization, JFrog listens to its customers. Nearly all of our development that we do and our roadmap is driven by our largest customers around the world. And they are the most innovative ones that are coming to us and explaining the challenges and the requirements they have in order to innovate and scale. So one is driven by that factor. Second, if you go back into September 2025, which was where the first Shahi Hulud attack happened, it was a very unique way in which that attack happened. It came in through a package that wasn't even installed. The installer was infected and poisoned.
Wow.
So this started to open up everyone's perception as to where the new threat vectors are coming in. And as a custodian of what happens in the open source community, it was incumbent upon us to go out and educate the market. We've done an incredible amount of education and work with our customers over the many months, including the years before that. What we are now trying to explain to the organization and to the world in general, that this is now a supply chain governance issue. It's no longer just a security issue, because when the attacker and the defender have the same tools,
oh yes,
it creates what we call as the adversarial symmetry paradox. How do you win? So the only thing that allows you to win is a layer of governance. So you need a control plane that's based on a single source of truth, a guardrail for governance, and in between those two, underpinned by those two, is your intelligence layer, which is where all your applications are developed. And that's what needs to get done. And that was the genesis of why we bring out the State of the Union report. We've been doing this for a few years.
Fair enough.
This time it's very different because the world is looking very different.
Is it also, to be honest, I mean, do you feel that the entire mythos conversation has also kind of, made everyone, wake up and sit up on their seats, because it's a very tangible threat? I mean, governments, banks, I mean, our own finance minister, of course, has been very, very, cautious about the entire situation. It's been an urgent situation. Do you feel that has also in some way or the other influenced this entire conversation to take place?
I think it is a compelling event, for sure. around the world, we see regulators and regulators call in the enterprises, especially the ones in the critical infrastructure, and ask them as to what their preparedness is should something eventuate. So we're already seeing this.
Oh, yeah.
Every single week, we see a new supply chain attack happening. We are seeing these threat vectors getting reported. We are calling this out. And luckily, a lot of our customers who are using this and have woken up to it and have been prepared are extremely safe, and they've been coming and acknowledging that and really, giving us the necessary backing to continue our research and bring this out into the market. But the Mythos and the likes of all the frontier AI models that are coming out are really a wake-up call. Now, there is an issue with some of this, which is we are also seeing that AI-generated code is also bringing back things that were good practices that had already taken into account and had put to bed many of the issues. Well, let me take an example.
Please.
Cross-site scripting, SQL injections, just the general injections of prompts. When a developer starts day one, this is kind of the school that they go through of learning that they are well prepared and they've done a great job. Unfortunately, what has happened now is with AI-generated code is we are seeing a resurgence of all of them. And really, some of those numbers are staggering. SQL is up 445%.
Wow.
And so, it is very coincidental that these two are happening at the same time, which means AI-generated code is bringing back stuff that enterprises had already successfully remediated. Now, the challenge for this is because code is being written so fast and in such huge numbers, it's creating developer fatigue in being able to go and vet it.
Right.
Today, 51% of the developers spend more time vetting code, and that creates fatigue. And in fact, in our study, we highlighted that in India, 34% of the developers automatically approve based on what an AI engine says is the security remediation without verifying it.
Wow. That's a big gap.
And so you see this whole fatigue has crept in because the workload has shifted from what a developer was doing to what a developer now needs to do. And these are some of the challenges. So I think AI is creating new vectors, new concerns, and therefore you now need to overcome many of these.
It's interesting you just mentioned that, Sunny, because I'll refer to a report which was released about, not by JFrog, but there was another institution that released a report about a month back. And it talked about how developers are talking about them slowing down. AI is not assisting them. It's actually slowing them down by 19 to 20%. So, that seems to be fairly relevant to our conversation right now. What are your thoughts on that? Because here it's supposed to actually help you, assist you in a big way as far as AI is concerned for developers. But we're seeing something different because a lot of that code which is being spewed out, they unfortunately are spending a lot of time trying to actually rectify it. But now the number you shared with me is contradictory to that they're just saying, yes, okay, let's go ahead.
So here's the challenge. Now, this can be overcome, and it's not that big an issue to overcome it. And I'll tell you why. If you're able to figure out and have governance as to what comes into the organization, and you put that guardrail for your agentic systems to only use what you have approved getting in, then you've already remediated so many of these issues that appear later in the software development lifecycle.
Makes sense.
So if you have those controls in place that prevent and enforce that only packages and models and tool sets and extensions and skills that you as an organization approve of has been scanned, has been checked for security and compliance and licensing, only those get in, then your code quality automatically also improves. And therefore, you don't get into this issue where people have to keep looking at poor quality code or AI slop, as they call it, coming out and then having to remediate it. So the best practices for an organization are put the control far left, shift it as left, and then scan through the entire life cycle. and you will get the innovation that you need. So that's kind of what we say, what JFrog does, is that we allow an organization to harness the abilities of AI to be able to scale innovation. And we do that by seamlessly embedding security controls,
Fair.
compliance, policy enforcement, and governance. And if you have these starting very left, you actually have a pipeline that's running really quick and really innovatively, and you're able to scale. And a lot of our enterprise customers around the world, we have 7,000 of them, are proving that.
No, makes sense. I think, Sunny, what you're probably talking about is the fact that stop the rot at the source, and it makes things a lot easier. Which brings me to this point. I want to talk to you about this. Log4 Shell exposed millions of systems through a single widely used library. Here's a use case for you. So how do enterprises build genuine trust in what they're consuming, rather than assume trust, as you had just mentioned, that breaks at the worst possible moment?
You can only trust what you can see.
Fair.
And I think Log4j was a great example of that, where the time wasn't spent about the fact that you had to remediate Log4j. The issue was enterprises didn't know where in their ecosystem they were using Log4j. And the ability to go out and garner that evidence and the traceability was a challenge. So really, when we talk about JFrog as a software supply chain governance platform, we're exactly saying that. We become the trust layer, but to become the trust layer, you need to have a single source of truth. You need to have a system of record that captures every single thing that happens in your software development life cycle. From the time, what did you bring in? Was it scanned? Was it verified? Was it compliant? Does it meet my policies? Did I do something during my first-party code development? Did I get approvals? Who approved it? You're collecting the set of evidences all along the way.
Fair.
And you need that now, because if you as an enterprise are serving, for example, in Europe, then you need to comply with the CRA Act. If you're in the US with the AI Act, in Singapore with the AI governance frameworks, in Australia with their frameworks. And when compliance,
what about India? Unfortunately, well, still not very clear, no, as far as the acts are concerned. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, today in India, I think we have an open framework. We've kind of said that we want to innovate faster.
Correct.
And so innovation ahead of security seems to have been a little bit of the posture, but I'm sure it'll change. There are enough policy consultations that are going on, and this will change as the adoption.
Is that the right approach right now? To be honest, Sunny, as far as India is concerned, when you're saying innovation is trumping governance, or for that matter security issues, has that been also probably the case, let's say, in Singapore in the past?
I would say Singapore has been very different. Singapore has always wanted to trust as a zero trust environment in the AI. So they have extremely tough controls. And the point that I said about 34% of the developers trust what AI says as a security remediation, in Singapore that is less than 18% in our report. So which means in Singapore, it's always verify before you can trust. And so we will need to adopt that in India. I think in India, we try to accelerate that, but some of them are shortcomings of that model, especially when frontier models are coming out with that frequency. Now, the industry statistics say that frontier models will get released every 8 weeks or so, which means you have a new generation of models coming out every 8 weeks. This space is only going to go faster and faster. And if the bad actors get hold of some of these capabilities, then we are in a troublesome situation. So I think we now, in order to move innovations faster, we are going to have to put governance frameworks much faster. And those guardrails are the ones that will help us innovate faster in India.
Fair point. All right, so this brings me to this now. AI agents are, as we have discussed till now, beginning to trigger deployments and interact with production systems without a human in the loop, Sunny. I really want your thoughts on this. What are the new categories of risks that probably, let's say, traditional security frameworks were not built to handle, and if you could be kind enough to elaborate with the use case?
Yeah. I think I kind of alluded to the fact that AI agents need to work in a very guardrailed framework And I think that's really critical. If you're going to get into autonomous deployments, then your guardrails better be really strong.
Sure.
Because the moment you let AI agents interact with the rest of your ecosystem, you're giving them a lot of capabilities. You are giving them the ability to think through problem solving. And therefore, you really need a compliance and policy enforcement engine that keeps those AI agents in check to do the things that you want it to do. Otherwise, you're going to run into a real risk. We have had many examples in the industry where someone's let an agentic deployment get out of control by giving it the ability to touch databases and wipe them out completely, right? Even the backups have been wiped out. So I think it's a bit risky to say that that we are going to have enterprises, at least the ones in the critical enterprise, that are going to let these things loose. They are going to put the guardrails. I'm confident critical infrastructure industries are very well regulated. They have a set of checkpoints to go through. Today, many of those checkpoints are manual, and therefore that kind of that stalls a little bit of their speed. But as they put these frameworks in place, then they'll be able to move faster. But without guardrails, it's a very risky proposition.
You know why I thought of asking you this particular question was Versa. If you remember, like you just mentioned, right? You know, databases were wiped out. Here was a person who was an employee of Versa, and he had plugged in an agentic AI agent, and just in 9 seconds, Sunny, 25,000 accounts were gone. That's why I thought of asking you this.
Yeah. No, it's very pertinent, because we are all even saying that on malicious packages getting in. You know, if you look at it, the 0-day identification is down to minutes now.
Yeah.
In the past, it was, if you go back a few years, it was nearly 700 days. Now it's in minutes. So I think, organizations are going to have to put a lot of enforcement around what they deploy inside their organization.
Makes sense. This brings me to this thought then, Sunny, which kind of, is something which I would really like you to weigh in on. This is slightly wider. Generally speaking, when we as a culture have gone through various technological changes over the years, over decades actually, let's say, for example, the internet, the mobile, every major technology kind of went through a stress test phase, right? Before we actually started to trust it with very critical infrastructure. Now, AI do you feel largely skipped that process? That's one. And is the software supply chain where we find out what we have actually missed? As you mentioned, not far left, we are not taking care of that. And when we realize, it blows up in our faces. So our enterprise is deploying AI into production faster than they understand what it actually is capable of doing.
The reality on the ground is that enterprises are doing lots of pilots, not really going all the way into production at scale. They're going into production in bits and pieces and internal environments first, and that's being very judicious. I would say that's a good thing. But the whole AI evolution is slightly different. And I know we are skeptical as human beings, having seen the wave from mainframes, and I've seen it in my lifetime.
True.
Mainframes through the internet, through smartphones. You see all the way, and every time everyone says this time is different, and you have a very long tail of adoption. It takes decades to adopt. But the challenge you have with AI is that these models are coming out so quickly, and they are getting more and more intelligent, and they're more and more capable. So I would say it is in the interest of the industry to harness that power, not run away from it.
Fair point.
Because this really is a game-changing environment that we are in. When you're in that environment, the best thing you can do when you have that kind of power at your fingertips is to channel it in the right way, in the right guardrail. So I sound like a broken record sometimes when I say that.
No, you're right.
But those are the things that the enterprises need to do. I meet a lot of the executives in organizations, and there is a perception gap. And we call that out in our report. Over 70% of the executives will tell you that they have complete visibility into the provenance of everything that happens inside their organization.
Okay.
They are very confident. Yet only 44% of that same executive's engineering department will agree with that. Only 44%.
Wow.
So there is really a gap between what the executives thinking and the reality on the ground. The people who are deploying it are actually being more cautious than the leaders who are being forced, saying that we need to accelerate what we are doing with the AI adoption.
Right.
And I think this is a very, very important aspect. So we go and educate the executives and say, you need to start looking at what's really happening in your environment and really build those guardrails, because your own engineers are
Yes.
concerned.
So tell me this then, Sunny. What is pushing, for example, the executive? Is it the investor sentiment that you need to go ahead and execute AI or implement it? Is it the wave? Is it the fear of being left behind? Because that's a yawning gap that you just mentioned, 70%, 44%, or 26%, in terms of the fact that an audit trail is being, thankfully, well, being kind of set up by default. But what's the reason?
I would say every enterprise leadership is getting a lot of pressure. They see this in the press. They see every company talking about how more and more of their code is automatically developed, how AI is fueling innovation. To some extent, there is truth in it. AI is fueling immense amount of innovation, but it's doing it in organizations that have invested early on in ensuring that they can harness this innovation. So missing out that portion of the conversation and getting into the FOMO that says, what am I doing? And there's a lot of pressure that boards put on executives as well to do it, and then it percolates downwards, is one of those challenges that we are calling out in our report. And I think as executives, it's incumbent upon the leadership to make those investments. And those investments are not just in technology. A lot of those investments is also in their own work practices inside the organization. And make sure that they are robust enough to handle what is running at machine speed. You cannot have human-driven workflow processes and gates where someone's waiting to receive an email or a ticket and signing off on that. Those days are gone with AI. And if you really want to harness that, you need to automate it, but you need to automate it with the right levels of controls.
Fair point. Which brings me naturally to this point, which is this fact that India produces more software developers than any other country. We're aware of that, and we're proud of that. Now, what is changing specifically, Sunny, in India's developer ecosystem? That's one. And how are the Indian enterprises approaching supply chain security compared to, let's say, more mature markets, let's say like a Singapore or, like you mentioned, Europe, etc.? We do understand, we've kind of in the passing talked about the policy, but I want you to go deeper maybe.
Yeah. I would say if you look back maybe even 18 months in India, you would probably find a little bit of distinction between two sets of Indian developer ecosystems. The one that's worked in the GCCs,
right,
and the global capability centers. A lot of that work is moving into India because Indian engineers have proven that they can actually build very robust environments and controls and powerful platform engineering in order to help the global enterprises that they are part of.
Sure.
This platform engineering expertise is really driving more and more of that work and responsibility to the global capability centers. And 18 months ago, we used to find that distinction that the domestic enterprises in India were not really moving at that pace.
Right.
But interestingly, the Indian government did a lot of work actually, and we have to give them credit where credit is due, in building some of the robust practices and putting them in place. One of those, we publicly announced with the Reserve Bank of India, where the Reserve Bank of India took that first step of making sure that they can fortify the entire the software supply chain, and went through that framework. Now that they are implementing that framework, you can start to see a cascade of other industries in the critical sector, finance being one, energy being another one, both of them starting to adopt these practices, and telecommunications. These are the three top critical sectors of any country. And you can start to see a lot of these enterprises starting to build on this framework and start to make the investments necessary. So I think there is a percolation of what the GCCs have already done and the talent that sits there, the recognition from the government that they need to do it, and they have started to fortify it first as a leader and to set the example for the rest of the enterprises. And you can see critical infrastructure enterprises starting to follow through. So I think there is a lot of hope. There are certain call-outs. For example, in India, one of the things that we call out in our survey is the ability to look at shadow AI, which means,
interesting.
Is there someone using an AI model that is not approved by the organization?
Right.
And over 60% of Indian enterprises actually had really good governance and compliance gates on shadow AI compared to the rest of the world. So I think there are great things that India is doing. Now we just need to get it done at scale.
Fair point. Fair enough. And I think, yes, you've mentioned it, and it's an important point that the government and the policy is tending to kind of support this. Now, JFrog reduced headcount while expanding AI investment. So obviously this has been the conversation, Sunny, as it's been going on across the world, Indian IT services, etc. That's where I'm going with this. So the pattern is running across the industry. So for the developer who's watching this, since you just mentioned that we have a very robust developer ecosystem in India, where does the human actually, reside in an AI augmented software pipeline? And do you feel, is that role growing or starting to shrink?
In JFrog, we actually hired more people.
Oh, well done.
We hired more
so
engineering talent.
Fair.
If you look at our Bangalore facility, it's one of the largest engineering centers that JFrog has, second largest across the world, in fact, is in Bangalore. And so what we see is that the top and most innovative organizations are continuing to bring talent in because if harnessed well, AI is making you significantly more productive, more creative, more innovative, if harnessed well. So I want to dispel some of it. We see a lot of the optics in the media sometimes that's saying companies are laying off under the guise of AI. But I think the most innovative organizations continue to bring in the top software engineering talent and arming them with the right capabilities of AI, giving them the ability to harness that with the data underneath that, is actually making these engineers produce more and more capabilities. JFrog's own development lifecycle is bringing in newer capabilities faster than ever. And we're bringing this to our customers faster than ever. So I don't see why one should lose hope. We had our EveryOps conference last week in Mumbai, and we asked a panel of our industry experts. We asked a panel of customers who were there, and what I got back was an incredible amount of confidence, not concern.
That's nice.
In their own ability to actually harness AI and continue to grow that with the people they have, if not more people.
Tell me this then, very quickly. I want to understand from you, what actually is the truth, Sunny, when we want to talk about the layoff aspect, because it is a reality. Indian IT has been laying off the way it has been. For example, if we just take them as an understanding, there is a lesser hiring of freshers, etc., because they're saying that the old contracts seem to be going on, but the new deployment, which is AI driven, is still not come to fruition, etc. So there seems to be a lot of fogginess, for the lack of a better word. I would like for you, since you are at such a responsible position with JFrog, etc., and you are very ensconced in the ecosystem, what actually is the truth? Is it a transition? Is it what's going on?
The transition or evolution is probably a great phrase to call this out. There is a shift in skill set in terms of what talent you want to keep inside the organization. And that shift in skill set is really about ones who can actually harness the power, the ones that are thinking about the problem and logical reasoning of the problem, and rather than in the mundane doing of the task. So that's kind of where the shift has happened, right? You're no longer spending hours trying to figure out how to do a task. You're thinking about what's the problem you're trying to solve and how many different problems are you going to solve and then the best way to do it. This is an evolution, and it'll evolve also because the structure of an organization is going to change. And I think this is a topic that is debated quite often around the world these days. Teams will look very different.
Okay.
Today, you look at span of control of teams based on here's an engineering manager and they have 200 people reporting into them. It'll look very different. You are going to have smaller and smaller pods. Each one of those engineering leaders or engineering team members is going to be augmented with more agentic capabilities. And so you're going to have these pods, and these pods are going to accelerate some of the development. Now, there's one area we still need to overcome that. Software development used to be also a lot about collaboration. How do teams collaborate with each other and debate to make it doing? If you have teams of agentic capabilities underneath, you need to actually now set up a capability that you need to wire up, that you can also continue with this collaboration. Otherwise, you're going to have very disjointed pieces of infrastructure or applications being created. And I think this is the evolution we're going into. I think this is going to take a little bit longer because models and capabilities continue to evolve. I don't think we have seen the end of all of that growth.
True.
There's still plenty more to come there, which means we are going to find newer and newer capabilities being released, and therefore we have to reorient. So the smartest, fastest thinking, most logical, engineers as well as talent will continue to find a place in this ecosystem.
Will you venture a guess in terms of the reset as far as the timeline is concerned for the industry to reset itself?
I wouldn't hazard a guess because I think the evolution of what's coming out, there's still probably quite a bit more that we are going to see, some amazing capabilities yet to be rolled out. We have not reached anywhere close to the full agentic autonomous enterprise yet. We're all working towards it, and I think that it's going to happen, but there's still more to come. So I think people transitions usually have to be done with a lot more empathy, and there needs to be more investment in it. And we are firm believers that as technology changes, in order to really harness the power to its ultimate, you actually need to have a dedicated set of people. And the only way you're going to get dedicated people is being empathetic and training them and investing in them. And that's at least our culture. We invest in the right talent.
I think my takeaway from that, to be honest, Sunny, was empathy. Very quickly, I'd like to kind of, in conclusion, ask you two things. One is the fact that there is this constant conversation about the fact that how OpenAI is looking at $1 trillion valuation, etc. But when you actually look at the losses, they're more than $14 billion. Fair? And that is generally the conversation with a lot of the frontier organizations and enterprises. So I want to understand this from you. What are your thoughts? The gap between capital invested and probably the revenue generated is definitely a question right now which no one has been able to answer fully. So I want to understand from you, do you believe the current AI valuations are grounded in commercial reality, or are we in a cycle that corrects really badly? You know what I'm hinting at.
Well, there are experts with a lot of money who are putting the money in. So I'm sure they are far more equipped to be able to answer that with authority. But what I can say is the adoption rate of capabilities inside enterprises is growing. You can see that from the revenues of all of the model providers. Their revenues are growing significantly. Look at the revenues in January to the revenues in April, and it's these growth rates have never been seen before. Now, the question is, can you sustain that? And is the ingredients that support that scale, power, infrastructure, compute capacity, is that keeping up with it in order to do it? But what is beyond question is that there is demand. So can the supply keep up? Is really the question of sustaining those growth rates. So if demand is there, that means the industry is seeing the benefit of this, even though it's early in the cycle. I think we have significant headroom to grow in the innovation cycle, which means that the demand is continuing to show up. Yes, there will be inevitably some speed breakers every now and then, and there has been no technology cycle without a speed breaker. We haven't hit one yet. We will hit it. But I think the momentum behind it seems to be rock solid.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Finally, I remember you mentioning earlier in the discussion, Sunny, which was about the fact that the attackers have access to the models. The defenders, of course, need access to it as well. I would like for you to conclude with that thought. What is your final take as far as that is concerned? Because, well, yes, you're right. The way things are accelerating, the threats are quite real. The threats are multiplying. So finally, do you feel that that's a guardrail which will secure us a lot better, where the defenders also have access to what the attackers have?
So what I talked about, the adversarial symmetry, means that both attacker and defender actually have the same model,
Right.
except that the attacker is fixated with one sole purpose, which is how do I breach into your enterprise,
Right.
whereas the enterprise has 100 different priorities that they need to handle.
True.
So really the difference between these two is going to be the wall that you create of great policy enforcement, compliance, and governance. That is the shield that the enterprises need to have in order to protect themselves and create a differentiation in this asymmetrical war that is going on. And so that's my call out to an enterprise is focus on those guardrails. That's the one that's going to earn you the trust. And that's the trust layer that we are trying to supply create with our supply chain governance platform for the enterprise.
Fabulous. Well, Sunny, it's been a true pleasure having a conversation with you. Honestly, very educational. You're doing some wonderful work, and I'm sure you're going to continue to do so in educating a lot of the enterprises, in probably influencing a lot of the policies as well, which I'm pretty sure that JFrog is doing and will continue to do so. This war continues as far as the defenders against the attackers, but I think the one thing which you have mentioned makes a lot of sense, which is kill everything which is not required at the source, and having guardrails is one thing which is going to be the mantra moving forward as the ecosystem is working at a breakneck speed. Thank you so much for being on Front Page, and I would wish the next time you're in Bengaluru, Sunny, we can invite you in person in the studio.
I look forward to it. Thank you for the opportunity to put our thoughts forward for the industry. Thank you, Sudhi.
Very kind of you, sir. All right, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Sunny Rao, of course, of JFrog, has spoken about a lot of things which I think are very insightful. And I would love for you to probably let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. So the build related to the cloud used to be complicated. Then companies started running AI workloads on the cloud. Now, it is a very different category of problem, unpredictable, fast moving, and arriving at a scale that traditional FinOps dashboards were not designed to handle. CloudKeeper, yes, is making the case that the answer to AI-driven cloud complexity is a conversational AI interface called LensGPT, which lets a finance team interrogate their cloud spend the way they would question a colleague rather than interpret a dashboard. Sanjeev Mittal, who is the CPTO of CloudKeeper, is joining me today on Front Page for this, honestly, very timely conversation. Welcome to Front Page, Sanjeev. How are you doing? Pleasure to have you with us.
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Fabulous. And let's get right into it. So most FinOps, right, Sanjeev, still manage cloud costs through static dashboards which were built for predictable workloads. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, with AI arriving, a lot of that has changed. So what collapses, let's say, in a traditional FinOps workflow when AI workloads arrive? And why is a dashboard honestly the wrong tool in the first place?
Yeah, look, I think a dashboard is designed to keep a persona in mind. And when you look at large corporates, they have different needs. A persona on a DevOps, from an engineer standpoint, or a team lead, or all the way to CIO would want to see different things from a dashboard. And then when you look at the finance persona, from a controller to somebody in treasury to somebody like a CFO, would want to see the data in a very, very different way. So historically, what has happened is there have been literally hundreds of different static dashboards that have been created to just somehow cater, and it all causes confusion. It's then very hard to find, among hundreds of dashboards, which one is the one that suits my needs, my particular needs. So that has been a challenge for a while. And that challenge is accelerated because the adoption of cloud, which was anyways growing pretty rapidly, like 20 to 30% year on year.
Right.
Now we are looking at AI adoption leading to that growth being, 20 to 30% every quarter.
Wow.
So that the consumption growth has resulted in more evaluation, more look back in terms of more real look back in terms of where I have spent the money. So those traditional dashboards just don't work anymore.
No, fair point. So it is essentially connected to the exponential growth, as you mentioned, and the fact that these tend to kind of get lost in that entire mire. Which brings me to this thought then, which is the fact that as far as the tool is concerned, AI tool, it helps to access not just data, it also ends up becoming more conversational. You can actually go ahead and have the so-called avenue turning into that conversation, which you can then use to assist yourself. Would you be kind enough to then maybe shed light on that, Sanjeev?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, look, historically, like every other FinOps provider, we are obviously industry leading, adopting technology ahead of everybody else. So we started creating those dashboards, on easy access, again, resulting into 100 plus dashboards. But then we realized, working closely with the customer, that their analysis is actually not complete by just looking at one dashboard. They would have a question in mind. They would ask that question that will give them initial set of data, but then they want to go deeper, both drill down and drill through to get more information, more insight out of the same dashboard that is generally not available because, the previous version, all the dashboards are fixed for them. So what they would do is a CFO would call somebody in the finance office and say, I want these three things. Somebody would scramble, write queries, get the data back to them. And then they would get the first answer back, but then they will have 5 more questions after getting the first answer.
True.
They would again call back, get that answer in 2 to 3 days. So it both leads in frustration from a CXO standpoint, as well as a waste of time. Now with LensGPT, what we have launched is all of this is actually in the hands of the CXOs, where they can start by asking that first question, which gives them all the detail that they're looking for, and then they can get as contextual as they want based on the answer that they have received. So giving them rapid real-time response without having to wait for somebody else, as well as all of their data is accurate and real-time, exportable, all of those facilities you can think of.
Sanjeev, was this something which was motivated from the fact that traditional tools would tend to kind of give you some sort of just a routine landscape in terms of, yes, thank you, would go ahead and give us a basic perspective of the fact that what had happened. It would just kind of report on that. right? But with LensGPT, correct me if I'm wrong, it is more about the fact that it is more predictive in nature. It's kind of going ahead and giving you what probably the probabilistic aspects could be. Was that also another reason that kind of motivated this entire initiative for LensGPT?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's not just a look back because we are learning machine learning algorithms behind the scenes. It's able to kind of also look at the forecast, based on what has happened, based on the behavior of the company, the industry, all of those data points taken into account. It provides a forward-looking view as well. But I think for us, I would say the key reason was we were continuously getting a lot of requests from our customers where they would, all our dashboards, by the way, are worked on the back of, customer requirements. And we obviously had very rapid delivery, very agile delivery, but we were constantly getting, different slices of data views. So we said, rather than keep developing those static dashboards, let's just give this entire power in the hands of customer, where they would not need to request any new dashboards or even create one of their own. They can just ask plain English language query, get the answers, get to the deep dive. And also as part of the tool, we launched kind of the forecasted way where they're looking at the analysis. And we are also giving them a forward-looking view, not just what has happened in the past.
Okay, could you touch upon in terms of, let's say, what does a conversational interface give a finance or let's say an engineering team that a buy tool fundamentally cannot?
I think the buy tool, what it does is it looks at a fixed set of requirements. It looks at what has worked in the past, would work in the future. So it has let's say a finite sense of what is available, what is delivered on the customer screen. Without a conversational interface, or the ability to provide that view, it's hard for them to know what is it that the customer really want. It's like advertising in the past world where you will put billboards, you put advertisement, and you would only hope that customers would take a view and buy the product. Before Google AdSense came in, where you can actually track the clicks and you can actually track the behavior. So with LensGPT, we can actually see what the customer is really asking, what the customer is really interested in. And the future versions of what we are providing is very close to the customer requirement versus assuming, which is the old SaaS way of doing it, which is just assuming what the customer wants and then see if it hits. You're kind of shooting in the dark in historical way of providing these features to the customer.
Very interesting. So at least at the end of the day, the way I understand it is that it is essentially a constant work in progress. It's constantly honing and improving itself, which is quite fascinating. Okay, now the cost aspect. So I mean, this is something which we've all kind of seen happen, Sanjeev. Recently, Uber, for example. I mean, that was a big one. A single AI training run consumes a huge amount of money, right? And how are enterprises actually dealing with AI-driven cloud costs, and more importantly, the volatility of it? Because that, I believe, is quite crazy right now. According to you, what are the most common mistakes that you are seeing that people or enterprises are making? Uber came out very clearly, that very popular statement that their entire AI budget was gone in a matter of 4 months. This was their annual budget. So just to put things in context.
Yeah. Look, I think the first thing is most industry leaders are having a sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. So they want to do something in AI. And then it depends on the existing levels of governance in terms of controlling or having either a freedom or a control in terms of how their teams adopt AI, which parts of the applications, which part of the teams should really be adopting it, for what purposes. So having or not having that governance in place. And third, I would say, is the data. So if the underlying data that they have is let's say garbage, for the lack of better word, then AI is not really going to help them. So most companies who have made a lot of value out of adding AI to their capabilities are the ones which had strong governance and strong data. And I'm not saying one company is better or the other, but if there is already a very strong data governance and the organizational governance, you're likely to make a huge value out of the AI investments, because it does make a lot of things go very fast. The quality improves. So we have seen it ourselves, like LensGPT. Obviously, we are using AI as well, and our costs are well within our range, like in fact, lower than what we anticipated. The reason is because we take a multi-iterative approach here, where in the first iteration, we may be using a lot of AI, maybe using a lot of LLM. Then our team continuously work towards, do I really need LLM in 7 of the 10 steps? Can I reduce it to 5? Can I reduce it to 3? In the end, when the product becomes GA and it has a mass adoption like LensGPT, we are not using LLM as much as we were using in the prior versions of that product. So I think that's another way to go, where it's genuinely making a difference. Adding LLM to your application, you do that, and all the waste in terms of where it's really like you can do without having an LLM. You should still be able to build a high quality application. I think that's the trade-off that most companies need to make.
It's very interesting that you said that. Do you agree with me, Sanjeev, when I say this, that somewhere there is a sense of maybe, I don't know, insecurity about our own human instinct the moment we start talking about AI? Because I mean, I sense that, right? It's almost as if, everyone seems to look at it from the point of view of it being just like, an out of the box experience, and fine, now we've got AI, so it will just solve everything. But I think somewhere what you just said to me made a hell of a lot of sense. It is the quality which finally matters, and it's the decision making of the human which will always impact the cost.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not
I use the
understanding
term,
that,
right? There is AI, which is artificial intelligence, but there is AI, which is actual intelligence.
Correct.
So we have to combine AI by AI. I think one of the co-founders.
I think we can print a T-shirt, honestly, Sanjeev. That makes sense.
Yeah. So organizations which have combined AI plus AI, I think, are doing really well. There's definitely advantage of adopting AI. But it's not for all applications. It really is about agility and quality. And if you're getting higher agility, if you're getting higher quality, higher productivity, then it makes sense. So companies should kind of do this iteratively.
Fair enough. Now, let me kind of, go a little broader. I want to talk to you about the sheer expanse of it. So let's say aviation company, or for that matter, a quick commerce platform, a fintech company. And of course, let's throw a retail brand into the mix as well. Now, these are very different cloud cost profiles. I hope you agree with me on that, Sanjeev.
They are.
Now, what does Interglobe Aviation's, let's say, cloud cost problem have in common with Zepto's? And where do they diverge?
I think it's really working backwards from their customer requirement. I would say Zepto would like to predict orders that they're likely to have when they're providing a certain time in delivery to home. If they do not have the right stock, which is 10 minutes away or 15 minutes away, so it's all about logistics, right? So that's where they would be spending a lot of AI money in improving their logistics, improving their forecasting of what goods, needs to be available, the availability of drivers, and so on and so forth. So that's very different. Whereas like an airline would really be providing a better, seat forecasting, being able to charge for certain things that they haven't done in the past. So both improving the customer experience in terms of when they have sold a seat, the seat is available when somebody is coming in, plus the fact that they're able to charge for their services. So both their revenue goes up and customer experience goes up as well. So I think those use cases are very different. But general trend that I'm seeing is that most of these companies are adopting AI in a very rapid manner. But
and LensGPT is assisting them to do so.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. So the adoption on LensGPT is really all about looking at where those customers are spending the money, what areas of applications are being spent on. Is that something within the budget? How quickly going to that Uber experience? How quickly are they able to exceed their budget? So they have all that visibility in place versus finding it out once it has happened. So they know already ahead of time.
I have to ask you this, generally speaking, all enterprises, nobody seems to want to take the ownership because it kind of always tends to go through this, passing of the buck kind of a deal. It falls between, let's say, an engineering, finance and procurement. Nobody wants to take on the outcome. So that's one thing I want to ask you. The second is FinOps problem a fundamental technology problem, or is it more about an organizational one? And according to you, Sanjeev, which do you feel when, let's say, you go ahead and talk to different enterprises, your instinct is to solve which one first?
It's a great question. It's a great question. Look, I think what ends up happening in enterprises is the actual consumption, the using of the technology is happening on the technology side, IT side, DevOps, engineering, product, all of that. Whereas the accountability of the spend, the finance, that goes on the finance organization side,
Correct.
right? The CFO, right? So they are the ones holding the budget, have to answer questions around ROI and so on and so forth, right? So where those two teams right at the top actually are working closely together, so they have
Right.
agreed, some basic principles, some ways of working, some level of freedom, and some level of governance control, like reporting and all of that. If they have agreed at the top level, it actually works really well,
Sure.
because then each area works really well. Um, we have actually tooling for both finance and engineering when it comes to the cost control.
Right.
So for finance, we have rate optimization tools where they don't even need to speak with engineering if they want to, cut down 20%, 25% of their cloud cost. They can actually do it just by using our platform. So we do interact with a lot of CFO persona organizations. Work very closely with DevOps and engineering teams to do usage optimization, to cut down wastage, underutilized resources and all of that. So LensGPT is obviously sitting on top, but underneath that, we have both usage optimization and rate optimization, which is helping engineering and finance kind of handle the cost challenges.
As far as I have to, obviously, it's interesting. This is what I wanted to talk to you about. As far as India is concerned, India's cloud consumption is going up, as you mentioned, which is kind of below this. The fact is that it's at almost 30+%, if I'm not wrong. How do you see the adoption taking place as far as our ecosystem is concerned, Sanjeev? Let's say if you were to compare it with other global aspects or other countries.
Look, I think India, I see leapfrogging the technology curve. For a long time, customers were really working on, let's say old school technology. But when cloud came in, a lot of startups actually started using the latest and greatest, cutting edge, bleeding edge technology stack, which is available. So the good thing is the stack available in India cloud through all the providers, AWS, Azure, Google is top of the rank. It's no different than anywhere else you would see in, the Americas or Europe. So the technology that is available for India to solve the problems is as good, if not better, than anybody else, anywhere else in the world. So that helps to kind of innovate very fast. And it's available again at a very cost-effective price point.
Sure.
You're able to scale up and scale down. So I do see, CloudKeeper really, sorry, not CloudKeeper, CloudKeeper as well as India Cloud really growing
Fair
very
enough.
rapidly. I think if at all with AI, the adoption is going to go even faster rather than slower, because the talent in India, which is coming at obviously, part of the cost to versus, let's say, somebody in Silicon Valley can innovate as fast as in somebody in Silicon Valley can at a fraction of the cost. So the cloud cost, I think it makes sense to spend that money to innovate and solve real problems.
This is the upside, which is wonderful. What is that one thing, according to your experience till now, Sanjeev, that, let's say, the India ecosystem needs to be mindful of going forward? Because I mean, we are talking about an accelerated growth pattern, but we also need to, well, be a little mindful of certain things. According to you, your experience, what is that?
Yeah, I think if companies have a long-term view, like at least a multi-year view in terms of how they are thinking about cloud consumption, AI consumption, rather than kind of, again, FOMO. So
Fair
I
enough.
don't think any company needs to think about, oh, they're missing out because they're not adopting AI. So it's not a must-have. I mean, they should look at each and every use cases
Sure.
that they want to do, and they should have a longer-term view of what this will be. Just like anybody has a product roadmap or solution roadmap, they should have an AI adoption roadmap as well. And it needs to be, I think, a multi-year journey versus trying everything and then figuring
Right.
out and then kind of losing that all the budget in 4 months instead of a year. They need to have kind of a stage gate model where MVP, version 2, version 3, and then GA, and then that's how I think it's the best way to use AI, because then you're learning as well.
Fair enough. Sanjeev, in conclusion, I do believe that you you're pressed for time today. It's been truly enthralling, our conversation, and I would love for you to come back on front page so that we can even go further into details. But before I let you go, I have to ask you this. CloudKeeper has set a 3-time revenue growth target by fiscal year 27. Fair? Now, I want to ask you, what is the single biggest risk as far as that plan goes?
It's a great question. I hadn't thought of that. I think we are very confident when we have set these numbers. They are based on our team, our capability, and what we are seeing, and also the tailwind in the market. Um, I think the cloud providers can change their policies very quickly. They can react to the market in a very different way. I think that obviously has an impact because we are linked to the whole cloud ecosystem.
Sure.
So that I would see as one risk. I think the AI adoption, again, if there are a lot more examples like the Uber ones, if that becomes kind of a norm, we see, let's say, with double-digit number of cases, that could result into a certain shrinkage as well. I think that is another risk. Those are two risks I would think of, in terms of how cloud providers evolve their policies, as well as the adoption of AI suddenly takes a U-turn, so to say.
Fair enough. Now that I've hopefully made you think about those two things, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to mitigate them moving forward. Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Very kind of you to have joined us on Front Page. It's been a true pleasure having spoken with you. I'd, of course, again like to extend that invitation for you to come back, because let's keep having this conversation, because I feel the one thing which you've talked about is so true. It's a roadmap. One needs a roadmap. Enterprises need a roadmap, need to think about it instead of rushing into things. Thank you so much for being on Front Page. Kind of you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Sanjeev Mittal, who has spoken wonderfully well, and I think that one final takeaway that I had from that particular conversation was AI meeting AI, which is actual intelligence. Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. I'm Antara, and this is Point Break Season 2, where we explore the invisible hand, how artificial intelligence is nudging our choices, how it's reshaping our habits, and how it's really redefining what it means to be human in a world that is learning to think for itself. So we'll get into it, we'll dissect it, we'll question it, we'll get into the nitty-gritties and nuances of what we call today the artificial intelligence. And in fact, for our very, very first episode this season, let's talk cinema. Because if there's one place AI's fingerprint is absolutely impossible to ignore right now, I believe it's on the silver screen. And I believe the guests joining us would agree to that. In fact, it is a pleasure to host this fantastic panel that I have here with me. Vritti Pandya, an AI generalist and VFX producer with experience across Hollywood and Indian cinema. She works at the intersection of AI, VFX, and visual storytelling, bringing both creative and technical insight into how cinema is really evolving. So thank you, Vritti, for speaking to us. And our second guest is Aparna Subramaniam, who is a film archivist and restoration consultant. She's someone who uses AI tools to bring dying cinema back to life. You know, we are talking about old frames, we are talking about faded footage, lost color. Her work sits right at the intersection of preservation and technology. So thank you for speaking to AIM, Vritti and Aparna. It is absolutely a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be in this panel.
Thank you. So, let me start simply here, because I think we throw the word AI around a lot without really understanding what it really means on the ground. In fact, I find it absolutely fascinating how rapidly the film and the entertainment industry is adopting AI. And these are big names that I'm talking about: Phantom, Red Chilies, just few of the many, many names that are out there actually inculcating AI into their day-to-day work. In fact, I would request my producer to play these screenshots out for you. Whether for pre-production, storyboarding, post-production, VFX, or audio dubbing, production houses are actively hunting for talent that can sort of bridge the gap between art and machine learning. So Aparna, my first question is to you. You actually use AI in your restoration work. So, just walk us through it. What does it look like on a practical day? And what is this tool actually doing? Aparna.
So yeah, I'll firstly explain why it is used. So we process film, we scan it to digital formats using computer-based technology to repair, enhance, and preserve aging or damaged cinematic footage. There are specialized softwares like Diamond, PF Clean, DVO, which are used to meticulously repair frame-by-frame footages. The process includes digital cleaning, color rebalancing, contrast adjustment, and increasingly we use AI for automation. Majorly, AI is used for faded or washed out colors, color imbalance, which is there, low contrast or dull visuals, and sometimes black and white footage enhancement as well as black and white to colorization. Technically, over here, colorization is something which is not ethical from archival perspective, but we generally have a market demand for it. So if there is a market demand, you have to provide the services. So there are softwares with advanced plugins which come to kind of colorize these footages, but AI does not help completely, because sometimes there will be some motion or rotos which are there, which will not completely, automation may not help you completely. There will be some manual intervention up to about 30% which is required in these softwares, where you have to go and manually repair it frame by frame. It's increasingly being used. So I mean, there is a market demand, especially in Indian cinema. We've seen Mughal-e-Azam, being restored in color. Again, restoration is a word which is highly confusing, because when you actually do a restoration, it's meant to be like a set of technical, editorial, and intellectual procedures which you are trying to bring back the audiovisual artifact to its state in which it was in its original condition when it was released or created. But in restoration, if you are applying any additional colors or something, it technically becomes a new product.
Right.
If you look at
absolutely.
It, recreation.
Absolutely, Aparna. In fact, I would like to ask you a follow-up question on the same.
Sure.
You was talking about how it's restoring older films for example, and I mean, in a layman language, it's restoring films, it's restoring expressions that were made by the actors. Do you believe that, there is an ethical question that the industry needs to be asking right now?
Well, the question generally for the industry is more about the market than ethics, I believe. So, I mean, I'm not really, from an industry perspective, I would really say it's all about the market. Ethics, ethics is something which we need to look at it when, it's an archival point of view or how you're going to present it. But, you can always present it saying it's experimental or a recreation.
Right, absolutely.
For presentation, you can always use new perspectives. But if you have to preserve it, it might, rather be in its original form or how it was perceived originally.
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you for answering that, Aparna. In fact, Vritti, my next question is to you. You work in VFX, right? Which is arguably the department AI has been able to disrupt the most and the fastest, in fact. So honestly, is it exciting? Is it frightening? How is it to work with AI being deeply inculcated into your work?
I don't see it as frightening, to be honest, initially, because it's more exciting, because it does help in terms of the expansion of how and what an artist can try, right? Like if we take it, it becomes frightening, or it becomes fearful to an extent where the people who are in charge of decision making starts valuing the undervaluing the artist more than undervaluing the craft, right? So it is, the fear is not the technology, it's how the industry chooses to use it. And now that it has come down into the VFX industry, it should increase the creative range. It is helping up reduce the cost affection value in terms of production, where it comes to the high-end big budget films, which are now being able to produce at a very efficient cost. And it's also majorly more exciting in terms of creatively, because it opens up the doors for a lot of people who were planning to enter into the industry, or wanting to show their stories and trying to make films, wherein it was not easier before, but now it's way more effective, easier, and creatively exciting for those people. So I don't think so that there's any fear that comes into the picture. It only comes into the picture when people starts undervaluing the artists.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
I mean, Vritti, would you say, so I think it's safe to say that, AI right now, at least right now in your specific workplace, it's not exactly a replacement, it's a tool. I think that would be the correct thing to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a tool that helps us to enhance the workflow better.
Right. All right. Aparna, there's something quite remarkable about what you do. Films that would have been lost forever, they are now being recovered. Would you say that would be even possible without AI?
I would say that to recover lost films, you first need to preserve film itself. So unless and until you have your materiality, that is your negatives or your release positives, or even let's say you forgot to save them, but you at least saved a digibeta or a beta tape or a pneumatic tape, there are still chances. Because when you kind of do a uncompressed transfer from your tapes as well in today's technology, like the tape technology is also kind of the digitization of tapes have kind of gone better what it was 2 decades ago compared to now. So you can always do an uncompressed transfer if your tape is in a good condition, and there are AI technologies and tools available to even upscale your video from SD to 2K 4K.
Right. So you believe the
those
need
are
of
also
the hour.
there.
Yes, the need of the hour would first and foremost be to really preserve films in the first
preserve
place.
your original material. And
Yes.
even if you digitize it today, you can't dispose the original, because 10 years down the line, technology to restore will be much better than what it is today.
100%.
So if you have to kind of digitize your footage, and digitization is only a way to access your footage, it's not a main way to preserve your footage. Your preservation actually lies in the source material.
Right, right, absolutely. Vritti, on the production side, I would ask you, has AI really made filmmaking more accessible? Are we seeing stories made that were, simply couldn't have been made before because of the sheer cost or the sheer scale of the production?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It has been more accessible, and as I just mentioned earlier, it has opened doors to the people who are interested in storytelling. But because of so much friction in terms of whether it was the costing, whether it was the production, whether it was reaching out to the real directors, AI has actually made that possible. So it's whether you're sitting in some location across the world, which is not accessible to whether it was global cinema or Indian cinema, sitting at your own place thinking creatively, it's possible for you to create an entire film. So it has made filmmaking more accessible, but then I would also say that it's just a tool which is making it accessible. The creativity, the human intervention is still needed. It's your thought, it's the human behind it.
Certainly.
You can prompt whatever you want to prompt, but at the end of the day, it becomes the taste, right? Like, how is it that you want it to be presented to the world?
Absolutely. In fact, I would like to ask you a follow-up question on that. You know, uh, let's be direct. AI is sort of reducing the number of people needed on a VFX team, right? We have seen that. We've seen that happen quite a number of times. So when we say that, when you say AI is a tool, at what point really does that tool starts to replace the hands, starts to replace that creative mindset that goes behind the production of these projects?
I I really feel it will be that this AI tool will start replacing the hand when the hand which is treating it will think in terms of the cost and not in terms of the craft. Because if you start thinking in terms of the craft, you definitely need the artist. You definitely need the creative people who are behind making that craft. But if you think in terms of the cost, then that's where the reduction happens. So, irrespective, people who are thinking that AI is going to help them generate films, I mean, why is it not that there are so many people who are coming up with the films in the filmmaking industry, whether it's the film festivals, whether it's, it's the art and the craft and the artist behind it. It's the thinking process, it's the taste, it's the emotion value, which is, leading to it. So, of course, the disruption is not only going to be there, it's majorly in terms of who is adapting to it faster. So if you are not, and if you feel like sticking back to your old original ways of working, then of course it's going to be cutting down these heads and making sure that the ones who are adapting to it are there. It's the same. It was earlier when it came down to analog to digital and then digital to AI. So it's just the people who are ready to adapt to it, the people who are ready to use it as a tool in their way, it's going to help them. But the ones who are thinking that no, it's just something which is going to make me lose my job, then of course it's going to make you lose your job. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think, it's not really about just how accessible it is or whether or not you have the right tools to really produce something of that scale, right? It also has a lot to do with what sort of creative vision you have. And I think when we talk about AI and artificial intelligence and its impact on filmmaking, we tend to, forget this particular point. I mean, of course, AI is out there. A lot of people are considering it as a threat, but use it if used the right way, and if you really have that independent creative vision. I mean, what you are saying is that it could absolutely be used as a tool, and it wouldn't really go on to replace any minds or any hands.
If you think of it, it is the same when it came down to VFX, right?
Absolutely.
When the cinema was there were a lot of people who thought that this is not possible. VFX is something which is, not really helpful for the cinema. But then there was adaptability to it, and we've seen such amazing movies with VFX, whether it was Avatar, whether it was Life of Pi. There's so much. So it's the way you adapt to it, and it's the way you help that tool create your vision better. That's how it's going to help the filmmaking process be the future of.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Vritti, for that. Aparna, in fact, this is a little follow-up question to what you said just moments back, and this is something I want to push on. So films you restore, right? I was just speaking about it moments ago. You know how the original directors, the cinematographers, the actors, they really had no idea that AI would be one day reinterpreting their work. So, as a professional, does that sit comfortably with you?
See, if it's just going to be a matter of experimentation, we've seen a lot of the footages of Lumiere brothers and other things being colorized on YouTube,
Yes.
and being presented. So again, like I would re-emphasize, it's a matter of looking at it as a work of experimentation. Especially in India, if you look at, say, that if I'm going to really re-release a film as a colorized version, over here, the director, the actor, or the people who are involved with the project hardly have much say as much as the copyright holder of the film.
Right.
So if I'm able, as a investor or a funder, if I have interest in colorizing a particular title of a film, if I reach out to the copyright holder, and if I get access to him or her, and they kind of approve of it, I don't need the permission of the rest of the crew. So again, it's and colorization, again and again, I would say, is a work like a recreation. It's not a restoration,
Right.
because this is how not the project was perceived. We have multiple examples in the country, like you have Mughal Azam, you have a lot of Telugu films also being colorized, like Maya Bazaar is one of the most common examples in Telugu cinema. So, and we kind of have a craze in India. For some people do have this entire thing of black and white to colorization.
Yes.
Ethically it's not right, like but when you are a service provider, you look at it like from a point of view of the market demand, and that's where money comes into play. Like if a copyright holder is finding an investor or is himself interested in kind of colorizing a particular footage or an entire film, I mean, it's their choice completely, and we need to kind of look at it just as a new work.
Right.
So work here being the original work is the original work, and this is a new work. It becomes a manifestation.
Certainly.
Or rather an entirely new work.
Certainly. And this is a question that I want to ask to the both of you. AI systems are, trained on existing films. They are trained on footage, scores, visual styles created by artists who never consented really to being part of that training data. Would the two of you call it theft, or is it just how technology has always evolved when you look back at the history of it?
I would like to just go first to say that there are different kind of challenges and dilemmas over there.
Right.
There's organizational challenges, legal challenges, and ethical challenges. Like you said, the individuals who are there are sometimes not even have consented for the use of the algorithms being part of the entire data sets over there. And there's algorithmic biases, especially when you are trying to create AI footage itself in filmmaking. Especially, I'm not even talking about restoration now. In fresh filmmaking, if you are trying to use Chat GPT and all these other apps which are available to create some kind of a visual reference to you, the point of question is, these facial recognition applications have biases based on race and gender, and these kind of reinforce societal inequalities. So there is an entire ethical and legal affairs which come into place, and these are all totally dependent on the organizational policies as to how an organization is trying to use AI to kind of put forward their productions.
Absolutely. Vritti, what do you really have to say about this?
I mean, I do agree to what Aparna actually mentioned, but as I've seen that influence, it's always been a part of an art, right? You have always, if you see the history, you've tried to study various kind of films, various kind of directors, whether it was anything. So influence has always been a part of an art, but extracting it without any consent or without giving any credit to it, uncredited, that is where the problem is currently. And as Aparna rightly said, that it depends on how the institution or the laws or the ethics are working on it, right? It depends on how a certain amount of people are trying to, if you're using it, of course, consent and credits, these are the two things which has to have been given. But if not, then it's something which you have to understand that where the law exists, okay, and where you have to draw the borderline in between, whether it's going to be ethical for the demand in the market or whether it's going to be ethical for the people who are consuming it. So there's a lot of consent related issues also coming up, whether it was the actor's name or face being used or stuff like that. But then I guess algorithm is based on that, whether even if it is you using Instagram right now or Amazon and stuff, and you're just thinking about it, a lot of people come up saying that I was just thinking about it and then the ad popped up, so that's not it's not magic, it's of course algorithm, it's data that is being collected, you searching about it, and so that were we ever did we ever approve it? Of course not. Did we are we a part of it? Yes, of course. So same goes with AI. I feel it is something where you need to understand and draw a borderline between whether you want to give the credits to the original art form or the creator of that and makers of it, or if not, then it's up to you. How do you perceive it?
Right, absolutely. In fact, Dhruti, AI is not really a conversation that, we had 5 years back, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
right now, since you were talking about the loopholes in the law, do you believe that, the law currently, especially in India, we have enough parameters to ensure that, the consent is being taken, or, we are giving the due credits? And if not, then there are certain legal repercussions to it. Do you believe that a law like that, needs to be a little more strict in terms of filmmaking per se?
Yeah, I guess it, as I just mentioned earlier, also, it has to be there. It's not there, of course.
Yeah.
There are being loopholes to it. And it's always going to be, humanity is in finding those loopholes and taking advantage of it. It's always been the part and the parcel of the process. But as I just mentioned rightly, it becomes to the personal ethics and the values of a person, organization, or institution using it. As a person, if I'm using it, am I giving the right consent or the credit to the people? If yes, then that's ethical for me. But as an institution or as an organization, it's something which is not generalized, right? It has to be something which is going to be in terms of corporate laws. AI is not just into filmmaking. AI is also being used for corporates. AI is being used for advertisements, for marketing, for every other sector where content is involved. So that is where these laws have to be a little strict in terms of understanding whether the consent is being taken, whether the art is being credited to the original maker, and if it is not, then why so? Because authorization or authorship is something which comes into the picture even when it's AI, right? It's the human intervention who comes and brings that image. So you can use the machine to create the pixels, the art, the tool, but the emotion, the exact behind it, it's the human. So of course it has to be credited and given consent.
Certainly, absolutely. And, in fact, and Aparna and I, we were just speaking on this. I think we can agree to the fact that there are, mixed sentiments when it comes to the use of AI. In fact, I was just looking at this one video where during this New York Comic Con 2025, Jim Lee, who's the president, publisher, and the chief creative officer of DC Comics, he delivered a message rejecting the use of AI generated storytelling. And he was quite adamant about it. And of course, that speech received a lot of applause. He, in fact, emphasized that comics are rooted in human emotion, imagination, and imperfection, qualities that AI cannot replicate. And I think this sort of goes with what, Aparna, you were trying to tell us. I mean, recreation is one thing, restoration is a completely different ball game altogether. And I think Jim Lee has made it very, very clear here that, when it comes to comics, AI will never ever be in the picture. So what do you have to say about this?
Well, I would rather say that technology is neither neutral nor harmless. It can be used for comics too.
Okay.
But I mean, I mean, again, comic is an emotion. It's like how Kriti said that, emotions cannot be, generated at times. Sometimes we have to match the emotions of the audience.
Yes.
And how it goes, how it plays with the audience is completely on audience perception. But in terms of, AI, like Riti pointed out, like even in any kind of a production workflow, we have to kind of look into how AI can, rather assist us, in the technological evolution. Uh, like how we have looked at almost every technological evolution, including social media in the early days. All of us thought that, oh, we are being listed like, private entities or, public profiles on, various sites. I mean, we become a public listing end of the day.
Right.
And we are giving out our data through our consent,
Absolutely.
in social media. So it's kind of knowing how much you are giving out. But again, we know that, all the companies are using these algorithms, and to what extent it can be used is something we need to be concerned about at the end of the day.
Right. So
So there are going to be all these dilemmas which will come with every technology. It's not just AI. Tomorrow it can be something else altogether.
So you believe a blanket ban on something like this won't really make sense in the long run, yes?
Won't make sense. We should embrace it, but also understand its pros, cons, limitations.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no harm in. I mean, technologies come and go. I mean, we all know that there are big brands. I don't want to name it, but they keep launching products, and products are retracted. Some products have worked, some have not worked. So, and every time there is a new launch, beta launch, we'll be like, I need an invite. We've lived through that entire thing, and we know that it never worked out.
Absolutely.
I mean, buzz is the right word if I just have to hint something. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Vritti, in fact, just continuing from the same question view here, Jim Lee, we were just speaking about him. Jim Lee has also said that AI, and I'm quoting him here, AI merely aggregates existing works and does not dream or feel. This is me building on your previous point as well.
Right.
He's putting his foot down. He's basically saying that AI cannot and will not replace any work when it comes to comics. But like Aparna beautifully put it right now, there cannot be like a blanket statement on the use of AI. One needs to really walk before they can run. One needs to really understand the uses, the nitty-gritties and the nuances before they start really implicating and using all of that in their work, and then deciding maybe that whether or not it works for them or not. So what is your take on this?
I totally agree to what Aparna said, and I don't think so that it has to be that it won't be able to replace DC Comics. So, for example, a boy sitting in somewhere in some village might be dreaming of creating his own comic, and through sketches, with the help of AI, he would be able to produce something which in the early 10 years ago he wouldn't have been able to, right? So AI as a tool is very accessible and very helpful in terms of getting your creativity out to the world. But
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, it's the human imagination which requires to be prompted to AI, because it's a tool. It's a data-driven tool. It's something which is learning from the data, right?
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, it's something that you need to put. It's the prompts that you put. It's basically, we call it prompt engineering, that everybody knows. So whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's any GPTs or any OpenAI tools or anything as such, and that comes, it's the engineering part of it, the prompting part of it, and that is where the human intervention is needed. I can put a same prompt and I can, so there's, just think of it as an assignment. Like, for example, I've been asked to create a DC comic in my own version, and so are you. But the prompt that you put and the prompt that I put might be different, and the outcomes are going to be different. Using the same tool, it's not necessary that we're using different tools. Imagine we're using the same tool, but still the outcome is going to be different. And the reason behind it is because my way of telling it, my vision of telling AI to do it was different than your vision.
Right.
So there is no blanket term telling it that, oh, of course, it's not going to be able to create a world like DC in future. It might be even better than that. You never know. But it's something which is going to be needing the human creativity, the human imagination involved in it, and it's not something that AI can do it on its own.
Right. In fact, along the same lines, this was what Jim Lee said. Now, Avatar director James Cameron also had a very, very strong opinion. Now, he has called AI actors, quote unquote, horrifying. In fact, Cameron was speaking to CBS in the run up to the release of the third Avatar film, subtitled Fire and Ash. And he was asked about the pioneering technology he used in this filmmaking. And regardless to say, he had a very, very strong opinion. He called AI actors horrifying. So, when we talk about big wigs like James Cameron and Jim Lee and all these people who are, which from the looks of it, they're quite averse to using artificial intelligence into filmmaking, into the process of filmmaking. So when, bigwigs are talking about how AI is not really needed or how AI is simply horrifying, what is your take as professionals in this industry? Apart from the fact that AI, you call AI a tool, right? But a lot of people out there, they are not really seeing it like that. They are just looking at it in a black and white scenario. So what would your message be to that sort of apprehension that is out there in the film society?
I would totally not agree. I would like to go first, Aparna. Sorry for this, but then I would totally not
Sure.
agree
No
to
worries.
it in terms of it because even when it was Avatar, think of Avatar without virtual production. Think of Avatar without VFX. Would that been possible? No. Would that vision has been possible? No. So think of AI as something which is a future-led thing in terms of VFX, right? It's
Right.
like another version of VFX, maybe.
Right.
So that is something which is not said. It's absolutely not horrifying. It's humans who are horrifying if they're trying to use it in a way, and not AI. You can't blame a tool to say that, okay, this is horrifying when you were the creator of it, right? So if humans are the ones who've created it and then calling it horrifying, then question yourself, why did you create it in the first place?
I believe this is where your
So-
credit and consent point also comes into the
Exactly.
picture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's something that it's very much essential to have the consent of the actors or the faces that you've been using, and give due credits to the people. And then I don't think so it's going to be horrifying. And then the next 10 years, we would love to ask the same question to them and see if they are not using the same technology in their future films or stuff like that.
Certainly. And
Yeah.
Aparna, your take?
Just to add to what Dhruti was saying,
Yeah.
this is the same thing I mentioned earlier. The reference sets or the data sets that are being created, they identify individuals or a cluster of individuals, which is completely, from a data set. And these data sets are being, created through humans. And sometimes if, there was some new Libby or something like that was there as a, trending thing at some point of time where people like, I mean, I didn't use it, but there might have been 100 people who would have, put away their photographs on, the internet, trying to get that particular, aspect of AI to
Yeah, it
it,
was
or, a
Ghibli art
cartoon.
which was
Ah,
come down.
Yes.
So
yeah,
Studio
so
Ghibli
so
was
when
the
you
one
are
who
giving
was,
your photograph for it, you are consenting to give your photograph to be part of some reference set that can be later used on for some,
Correct.
exactly
other data set as.
yeah.
So that's what I was saying, that when we are putting across data on the internet, as any profile, it could be through any social media, it can be, through any AI app, it will be used in any way. You become a data set at the end of the day. We consumers of internet are data sets at the end of the
Absolutely.
day.
We can't have
We
it
are
both
consenting
ways.
to it.
We cannot
Yeah.
have it both ways. We, at the end
So
of the day, we are consenting.
we are consenting and we are giving away the data and we are being used. And how our data is going to be used becomes, the question at the end of the day. And if
Absolutely.
and it's like, I mean, their entire, like, if I'm using AI to generate a character or something, it's going to go through these huge various, data sets which can have, national, international, racial, a lot of, n number of biases which is going to be there.
Yeah,
So
certainly.
I mean, and data sets and biases is always there.
Yes.
I mean, whether be it for e-commerce or whether be it for film production, there's
Yes.
always going to be a debate on that. So how I put my data, how I know how my data is going to be used,
Yeah.
is something in my control.
Absolutely.
And as we, I mean, I've never seen the question come out before earlier when, there were things in terms of, there have been so many movies across the era being, the bits and pieces of it. I wouldn't say that they've just copied down the entire movies. There have been copies of entire movies as well. But there was no due credits given to them, whether it was Indian cinema or whether it was. It's not just filmmaking. It's across, as she mentioned, it's also across e-commerce. The Kolhapuri chappals, which was trending in terms of Prada using it as. They are named whatever it was. I don't remember the exact name. So the consent and the credit is what comes across every industry. It's not
Yes.
just AI, right?
Yeah.
So it's something which we need to have the ownership of and be proud of, that okay, this is what something I've created, and speak about it. There are creators who are okay to give away the credits and the name or the IP rights for it in terms of XYZ amount of money or stuff given to them. So that's absolutely okay for people like them, then it's fine. So it's consent and credits which is supposed to be taken across the industry, whether it's AI or whether it's anything else.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to Prada, the point of Kolhapuri chappal, I would say that Kolhapuri chappal is more of a cultural context over here.
Yes.
There's no let's say IPR over it, or there's no things
Right.
over it. So that's the
Exactly.
reason it kind of gets picked up by Western ideas. So we need to understand the differences, in creative industries, the difference between copyright and moving images completely have a different copyright structure.
True.
Advertisements have different copyright structures, and IPR is a different thing. So within creative industries there are different concepts that can occur, and I think we should embrace everything and know the limitations. That's all. And
Absolutely.
in terms of talking about movies also using there was a re-release of Ranjana recently,
Yes.
where they edited the end with AI to something else. I haven't
Yes.
watched it, so I can't comment it. But like Vritti also pointed out earlier in the conversation, AI cannot be used for complete filmmaking. I believe in the recent trends, AI is more plausible when it comes to nano filmmaking rather than active short filmmaking. Also, I mean, you can't even make a 10-minute film using AI as of now. I would believe it's still somewhere between 2 to 5 minutes, I guess. So we can call it nano filmmaking as of now.
Absolutely. Vritti, I would like to take the next question with you. You call yourself an AI generalist, which is a title that probably did not exist some years back. What does that tell you about where this industry is going? I mean, how fast really are we as, a film production industry really adapting AI and, inculcating it into our day-to-day production?
It's moving rapidly, of course, at the speed of 2x, I would say. It's not something,
Okay.
because if you see the AI generation tools, the generative AI, which we call it, right?
Yes.
It's having its own data structure, tools, various
Yes.
things coming up every other day. Like every week there's something new that comes up into the picture wherein you are able to, it's a bit more closer to making filmmaking more easier and accessible to people, right? So in terms of speed, yes, it's moving rapidly, and it's basically an industry where now we need hybrid thinkers. It's not somebody who needs to think in terms of the originality of the content, as well as how AI can help inculcate and fasten up or easen up the process of filmmaking. So it's like a translation between technology or imagination and how we can execute that both effectively.
Absolutely. Vritti, in fact, a little follow-up question to that. There used to be an army of visual artists out there, hundreds of artists behind a single effect sequence. Since we are talking about how we are, inculcating AI into our day-to-day work, Would you say that that number of hands is shrinking, and have you seen that change firsthand at your workplace?
I mean, of course I have, and it's not just merely because of AI, it's also because of adaptability. As I just mentioned this earlier as well. It's how it's not just in the filmmaking industry, it's also whether it comes down to the IT industry. I'm an engineer by myself as well. So before me being an AI generalist or a VFX producer, I'm an engineer. And when it comes down to the data driven part of it, or how AI has reduced down on the numbers of it, it's merely because how you are adapting to it. If I am able to adapt to it, of course, at the 2x speed which it's evolving, I need to make sure that I'm able to understand it, adapt to it, be walking with it and not behind it. Because if I am walking behind it, it's of course going to be shrinking down the numbers, right?
So one
And
has to
it's
constantly upskill, you would say.
Yes.
Yes,
And
that's
it's
the right
not,
word I
it's,
wanted to
yes,
say.
upskilling is something which has been always into the system, right?
Yes.
It's not just
Absolutely.
now, it's always been there. But
Absolutely.
it's also depending on the decision makers. When we talk about shrinking down the numbers, I would say that the decision makers should not use AI as an excuse to, cut down on the artist. Because we need to understand the craft, we need to understand the upskilling part of it, upgrading part of it, and making sure if your artist is being valued and upskilled in the right way, that could be somebody who will be helping you to create the right set of feature films in future.
Certainly. Aparna, what do you say?
Yeah, upskilling is the right word, and to add to whatever Vriti said, it's always about survival of the fittest.
Certainly.
And
Yes.
that's what the industry thrives on. And thrivers are usually survivors. So
Absolutely.
that's how we need to look into it. Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, we can only do so much, but if you want to really compete in an era where AI is right there next to you, one certainly has to upskill there. Vritti, my next question is to you here. When we talk about AI generating visual effect, and the audience being really moved by it, the emotions, the kind of emotions it brings about, who you believe deserves the credit here? The prompt writer, the tool, or the artist who themselves supervised it?
I mean, it's of course going to be the credit belongs to the human who bring that intention on the floor, right? Especially it belongs to the entire human team behind it.
Yes.
It's not a single person credit. It's going to be the visionary. It's going to be the judgmental. It's going to be the artist who produces meaning to it.
Yes.
So it's you never gave, even in the earlier era, did we ever give credit to the camera? No, right? We gave the credit to the cinematographer
Fair.
behind it. So
Fair.
we why are we questioning whether we should give the credits to the tools? No, of course
100%.
we are going to be giving the credits to the humans, the artists, the visionaries behind those tools. So I guess that should answer. Yeah.
The tool essentially becomes the facilitator. That's
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. This reminds me of this one phrase that I heard quite a number of years back, actually, where we were talking about how good is a photograph really. Does a photograph depend on the camera or the person clicking it? So this
Absolutely.
sort of, the camera is the tool here.
Evolution of mobiles with such huge camera quality,
Yes.
and people using it, like earlier we had DSLRs and now we have people using mobiles to even create films.
Yeah.
Right? So shoot films. So it's at the end of the day, it's the visionary, as I always, throughout this session I've been continuously replacing and talking about it, that it's the human behind it, it's the vision
Absolutely.
behind it, and that's what is going to be there always. So the people who are creative thinkers should not fear AI. I would never say that they are the ones who should fear AI. They should embrace it and use it in a way wherein they are able to create more better films.
Absolutely. Aparna, I would like to ask you a technical question here. Okay, so for example, if you were to look at a damaged frame, right?
Okay.
What is your eye looking at what AI cannot see? What does your human judgment, where does your human judgment really override the machine?
So you have to have very careful eyes for it to look at it frame by frame.
Yes.
Essentially, when you use AI automated plugins which are very costly for that, for your information on softwares like Diamond, it kind of works on it does a blanket application on the entire tool, but then again you have to go frame by frame and see, because sometimes in one frame that damage may not be there and it can create a different artifact
Right. Right.
on that frame. So you have to, like, even if AI does a full automated process, you have to go manually frame by frame and check whether it's matching the sequence before or not, especially when there are more movements. If it's more static frame, it works, but if it's a song sequence, let's say,
Yes.
and sometimes there are certain damages which AI may not be able to ever correct it
Correct.
completely, maybe to some extent, because in film sometimes the film emulsion itself can have a damage where there are 9 sensitive layers of color on it, and if there is a liquid damage to it, sometimes even the scanned footage can have that same damage. Those are certain difficult repairs, but again they can be repaired manually frame by frame. And within softwares there are options of if you have certain frames that are having heavy damage, there are AI tools available, or certain plugins available within these softwares where you can you know construct frames too with AI.
Right. Right.
So those options are there.
Absolutely. In fact, when you are, again, a very technical question here, when you're restoring a film for, say, from 1940s and 50s, right? Whose vision are you really serving? Are you serving the director's original intent, or are you serving the vision of the modern audience?
You have to look at it from the cinematographer's perspective.
Okay.
Because how the made work, I mean, cinematographer and director's team working in ways, because you have to replace or make the film as viewable as possible when
Correct.
it was at the time of the release.
So the original intent, basically.
But again, when you restore it, you need to ensure that you don't clean it up as if it looks like a newly shot video. You need to have the grains, you need to have some flickers here or there to kind of maintain that tonality of celluloid footage for that. But you don't need to make it into entirely HD footage as if it was shot yesterday and
that sort of brings me to my next question here, and this is for both Riddhi and Aparna. What do you have to say about AI hallucination? This is a terminology that has been going around in the circles for a while now. And for all the right reasons, given the fact that AI has often hallucinated elements that weren't really there. And strictly from the point of view of filmmaking and cinema, what is your take on it, and how do you believe that could be fixed?
Should I go first?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So what happens with these, AI hallucination is it will enter, any temporal or spatial models that will, fabricate your artifacts. As a trained archivist, I find it problematic because we will say that generate a footage, in New York City and in XYZ era. We have seen these, kind of generative things, and what happens is you see an image in the background which will show you the Seattle Space Needle. I mean, that's essentially not New York. But how is AI going to know whether 400 years ago, if it ends up giving you a Seattle space shuttle or something like that, an imagery which is more specific to Seattle, if you see in the skyline of Chicago or New York, how would you feel? This is where the hallucinations play a part.
Correct.
Which is ethically wrong, and because the AI data sets are not trained, basically.
Yes.
Totally agree, and it's basically see, it's at the end of the day, it's a tool which is pretending to know all sorts of knowledge, right? It's something which is it does not know the exact truth, and truth in its perseverance or perception is going to be different for different people. So it's AI hallucination comes down where its system is filling the gap of that confidence and truth in between. So it's trying to confidently portray something,
Yes.
saying that this is the truth, and it's up to the perseverer or the person who is taking it to understand whether it's going to be the absolute truth or it's something which is just pretending to be knowing about it. So that's where it comes down to the receiver who is actually using it and how is
And
he
whether
using it.
understands whether it's truth or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. In fact, 10 years from now, Vritti and Aparna, is the filmmaker primarily human, primarily AI, or someone who knows how to work with both? And I believe we do have the answer for that. But given the pace at which AI is coming into the picture, where do you see the film industry going in the next 10 years?
It's if I may go first, it's going to be. I mean, I've been answering this question multiple times to across different people and spectrum of audience, and I always say this: it's going to be human led and AI literate. So these two words sum it up. So the future of filmmaking is going to be, of course, human led, but people who are literate with AI. So yeah.
Well, I would like to quote Niels Bohr over here that the only thing predictable about the future is it is unpredictable. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Certainly, because AI, when it didn't really ask for permission, it didn't really knock on the doors when it entered. It entered
Absolutely,
and it revamped the entire landscape as we are looking at it, right? So of course, we cannot really ignore the kind of implication and the kind of impact AI has on filmmaking and cinema. But at the same time, I believe it is imperative for the budding filmmakers also to understand that upscaling is the way to go, and AI is not really your enemy here. It's not really trying to eat up your job. It's trying to help you if you would let it.
yes, it's basically understanding that it's to remove the friction, to use AI to remove the friction in terms of the processes and not in terms of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Today, in fact, we came in asking whether or not AI is a tool or is it a threat to filmmaking. But I believe Aparna and Vritti, we are leaving with a harder question here, right? If AI can restore our past, if it can generate a future, what exactly is left for us to do here? And of course, when this brings me to Vritti's answer as well, that it's just a tool at the end of the day. So when you keep all of that in mind, I believe we need to hold on to the fact that humans at the end of the day are driving the car here. And to what extent can we let AI really affect and really come into the picture depends solely on us. Yes?
True.
Right. In fact,
if we have to let AI take away our future, it is again with our consent. So
absolutely. Again,
think
consent is the
goes
key.
it goes down the line
If-
to the same
if-
social media era, right? Like when it came down to us, none of us were aware of it. Were we using WhatsApp 20 years ago, 25 years ago? No. Were we using social media 25, 30 years ago? No. But then now it's a part of our daily lives. Would you be able to communicate with people without using WhatsApp? No. So it's the consent, as Aparna rightly said, that said rightly, that it's up to us how much are we giving out to it to be able to consume us. So yeah.
Would you, Vritti and Aparna, would you believe that this whole wave of artificial intelligence, is it pushed furthermore by the founders of artificial intelligence companies?
I'll try to go first on this, Vritti,
Yes,
please.
please.
So I'll ensure one thing, that when the analog era faded, it was essentially the capitalist digital era which kind of made it fade away.
Yes.
Like, we call it, the digital dark age, but we have entered the digital era without even understanding what are the problems of digital data and digital preservation.
Yes.
and now we have AI into place. Like, we are in a democracy where, obsolescence of technology is very important for capitalist companies to thrive. So, and that is more in the digital era, and obviously with AI it will be more. So we need to look at it how we are going to consume it. Even though all of us thought that analog is gone forever, we all know that film processing and celluloid film shooting is coming back into practice in the last 7 to 8 years. And once your digital data, if it is lost, you will never be able to recover it unless you have a backup somewhere. Whereas, in celluloid imagery, you still have the option to look at the film and, look at what the images were. It's a similar way, like, it's an entire capitalist way of looking at how one industry, dominates over the other and tries to thrive upon. Again, it's the survival of the fittest.
Certainly.
I think
Certainly.
on it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would just state it in one way that accessibility is not the same as mastery, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to be the master of it, you need to understand how things work, and the entire decision makers of different industries, companies should be able to, should be having the knowledge of it, of how it actually works, and not just sit there commanding people to know about it. So if you are the authoritative person, the right person running the industry, whether it's a small organization to big MNCs, you should be having the understanding of it to make the right set of decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Vriti. I mean, thank you, Aparna and Vriti, for that. Aparna, I would, there's this school of thought, right, that says scratched print, faded color, and worn audio. That is film. That is part of the history. The damage that has happened is part of the history. So when you're using AI to restore these films, how does that really sit with you? Do you agree with the school of thought?
I would say that it's not completely AI that is, restoring these films. A lot of time, like I said, there is manual intervention required. So let's not say that, it's AI completely. Like I said, AI is, again, Priti keeps pointing out, there is a human who is sitting and operating that software at the end of the day. So it's about the software mastery over here. So there's no, AI that is going to take over entirely. There's no machine or robot which is going to sit and do that. It's the human eye, it's the human thing. And see, it's damages are there, but like I said, these things are being done to footage that is scanned or digitized through video. Your born digital video artifacts which are there has to be stored properly, and 1 0 or 1 is lost in your hard drive somewhere, you are not going to be able to retrieve that data forever.
Yes.
So that's where we don't understand the nitty-gritties of digital preservation over there. Like I mean, we all talk about, we are struggling with analog.
Certainly.
And we don't talk about digital preservation over there. Digital data is nothing but 0 and 1. Today, if I lose 1 0, we know how many times we are not able to retrieve our Word files, for example.
Certainly.
And it's and I mean, I know certain YouTube channels. I'm in touch with a couple of them where they are saying that we have about 30 TB of data we've shot in the last 5 years. We are unable to retrieve the content from hard drives.
Right.
Absolutely. So how do you get into this? AI is not going to help you.
Certainly, certainly. Vriti and Aparna, let's just zoom out here a little bit, and look at it from a wider lens. The AI dominance has shown a lot of, has had a huge impact on resources and nature. Okay. Yes, it is being used as a tool. Yes, it is of a massive help in numerous fields out there, but one cannot really ignore the fact that it has had a huge impact on resources and nature. So what really is the trade-off here? Vriti, if you could answer that.
Yeah, it's the same. I'll just go first
yes,
because
please,
it's the
please.
same as how we talk about digital data storage. So all these are going to use heavy resources, servers and everything, and obviously it has an environmental impact.
Correct.
We need to see that certain AI servers or certain things which are being used by huge corporations, we need to look out on where they are based, what are the sustainable solutions they are using to kind of run these centers. That is how we can look into it. But I mean, those are not in our control, obviously, as long as I am not running an AI center.
Absolutely. Shruti.
I mean, it's a question which should be, it's something which is going to be asked to the creators of it, like we are the consumers of it, to be very honest.
Correct.
It's if the same question was asked like 50, 80 years ago, why was air conditions generated when or created when that it's going to be causing global warming into the future. So it's similar to AI tools. Of course, it needs a lot of cooling components. It also needs massive data centers for storage. There are companies which have been opened and also shut down, in terms of which we I mean, of course, a lot of consumers would not be even aware about that. Okay, this was an AI company which started and also it's now
Shut
closed.
down.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because of the scarcity of the resources or tools. But at the end of the day, it comes down to all these ethics and personal morals and way of looking at things. So if
Absolutely.
you as a person are consuming it, and if you're rightfully questioning it in terms of environmental effects to it, then you should stop consuming it. But would you be able to? No, of course not. So it comes down to the creators on how equivalently are they trying to preserve or sustain the environment, along with making it accessible to the future of the human
Absolutely.
colony. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's safe to say that AI indeed is a double-edged sword here. But how we
Yeah.
end up regulating it is solely on us. And I believe that is the conversation India needs to be having, right? And we are just getting started. Yes, AI, again, is a tool that helps lakhs and millions and trillions of people out there. But one thing, or maybe few of the things that AI still cannot replicate is, I believe, judgment, conscience. And these are the factors that really separate AI from the humans of filmmaking.
I would like to add
Yes,
taste
please.
and emotion to it. Like,
Yes,
it cannot
absolutely.
replace your taste or
Certainly.
emotion as well.
Certainly, certainly. In fact, this is part of the reason why I believe artificial intelligence, while it's really in the picture right now, it certainly still is an assistant. It has not taken over, and by the looks of it, and if we were careful about it, it's not planning on taking over either. It is here to help, it's here to aid, it's here to assist.
Right.
Yeah?
Yep.
Absolutely.
I totally agree.
Absolutely. In fact, I think that has been a really, really enthralling conversation there. Rithi and Aparna, and thank you so much for being on Point Break. Thank you for speaking to us. It was a fantastic conversation, and this is for the viewers who have tuned in, who are watching this. This is a series. This is a series of episodes that we'll be having on Point Break. And this is just one of the many, many interesting conversations that we will be having here on Point Break. So do stay tuned. I'm Antara, and I'll see you again tomorrow.